Good evening, everybody. Oh, sorry. Call us to order. It is the welcome to the Swampscott School Committee regular session for Thursday, March 27th at 6 p.m. And yes, it's still light outside, which is great. We are coming to you live from Swampscott High School, 200 Essex Street in Swampscott. I call the meeting to order. If you are so able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Just watch the wire there, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Great to have some guests tonight live, and I'm sure there's a bunch of people who are watching virtually. Thank you very much. We will go to For the Love of Learning.
We do have a For the Love of Learning segment tonight. We're very excited. There was a connections conference that Mrs. Lynch and Mrs. Ramirez took our students to, and our students were able to come tonight. And I do think we have somebody joining us virtually. Did I read that today?
It changed. She's in person, so we're good.
There you go. Good. Well, welcome. I'm glad you made it. I just didn't want to forget anybody. So I'm going to turn it over to them. We do have a presentation, which it isn't linked on our agenda. Do we have access to it?
Who did you send it to?
Okay, so it might be linked on the, she might have updated the agenda and have it.
It is.
Okay, I have an old one, so.
Okay, it is on the.
Okay, so it is
Yes,
linked on the agenda. So we will bring it up for you, and all you have to do is tell somebody when to change slides. And do you want a microphone? Oh, there's one right there in front of Megan. Thank you.
I can start while we're waiting for the slides
Sure.
to come up. So we took a total of 8 kids, 2 kids from a few different groups or clubs in the school, and it was pretty awesome to see them, you know, the ones that Krista and I went to as well. A lot of kids from other schools kind of grouped and went to different workshops together, and all of our kids branched out and all went out by themselves and just tried to take as much out of the conference as possible, which I thought was awesome. So I think the first slide is just about Danvers High School, and they did this whole thing with board games, so gearing towards high school students.
Oh, can you first talk about what groups we took on that blue slide?
Sure.
Yeah.
So the GSA, the Gender Sexuality Alliance, the Girls Group, ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, and SOCA, which I almost forgot what Students of Color Association, and it was pretty fun to go all together in the groups. And they seemed to really enjoy it, which was awesome.
We're just trying to maximize.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Where's the 3 dots?
What if you do there? What if you open it and Google?
You just need to go to top. You need to hold this.
We'll be right with everybody.
What's the girls group? I haven't heard of that one
Girls
before.
group is, we call it girls group because it's girls room of color.
Oh, okay.
We voted against G-Rock.
Can't imagine why.
That was a really good decision on your part, by the way.
That's good.
Very good decision on your part. There we go.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joe. Okay, good.
So just some pictures. So it was all about social justice, empowering youth voices. You can go to the next one. So this was a presentation by Danvers High School. It's a student-led group, and they developed actual board games for geared towards high school students, just to get them to start having really intense conversations that they probably normally would not have. And it was really awesome. We got to play the games, and it was very cool to see all different people talking about things that they would never normally talk about. So it kind of breaks down the barriers specifically for high school students to talk about different things. And I'm going to pass it down to Janera, so you can go to the next one. Her slide.
Hi, my name is Janera Chaquez. I'm in girls group, and my workshop, my first one, was leading brave conversations around social justice. Personally, I really enjoyed this. So basically, our workshop leader was a professor from Sacred Heart University. She taught us ways to kind of talk about social justice, ways to confront it, and like how kids feel and the impact of it. So we learned the difference between inclusion is an action and belonging is a feeling. So I can feel included, but also sometimes I don't feel belonged. We learned how to speak up in schools, how to do professionally. She gave us a paper, and it was like paper of steps of how to address the topic and go to our principals and address those topics, which I really appreciated. And then we learned about how other kids in like different states are going and confronting these issues in their schools. We learned about other clubs students took. We learned about students going to school board of education and changing their mascots because it wasn't appropriate, or changing the way they learned. So they added like Hispanic classes, African American classes, and Asian Pacific classes to be taught in their schools. And then we try to acknowledge the impact that in our schools and the way kids feel about that. And also just talking about the Board of Education and ways that we can go up and like talk more about it.
The power of your voices,
Yes,
right?
very important.
And what grade are you in?
Oh, I'm a junior, sorry.
That's okay.
Hi, I'm Ella. I'm from the school's GSA. And I also, at a different point, we ended up going to the same one, but I also was with Dr. Prius's leading brave conversations about social justice. So like looking like other things that we kind of took away, a lot of it was just about like actions you can take to be a social justice advocate or activist. So like being intentional about your organization and your planning, and understanding your privilege and using that to be able to speak up for those who are disempowered and do not have that kind of privilege. And listening to a variety of different perspectives. We talked about how in like brave conversations, as she calls it, there's like moral, intellectual, emotional, and social perspectives. So kind of taking all of those into account, and understanding how we have implicit biases because of our own identities. And then also kind of similar to the inclusion versus belonging, she talked about the difference between allyship and activism. So activism is a more active like role you take on behalf of solving social and political issues, whereas an advocate or an ally assists or speaks out to support the work of activists. So kind of what you can do to move along that social justice continuum, as she calls it, to become more of an activist, or whatever you can do in your community. And then talking about, before beginning a brave conversation, just kind of what you can do to make that as successful as possible if you're trying to address a social justice issue. So setting norms, being clear about the objectives, not engaging in arguments, assuming best intentions of everyone, and just allowing space for respectful disagreements if they come along. And then the photo there, I won't go into detail, but that's from Harvard's Calling In and Calling Out guide. So kind of just about how you can address those different issues, where calling in is like an individual private conversation and calling out would be public. And then because she has a background in education, her last thing she talked about were the 3 things that like help students thrive in school, which is feeling like you belong in the classroom, feeling capable of learning in the classroom, and then feeling that the work you're doing has significance. So that was what I took out of that one. And then the next slide was the second workshop that I went to. And that was called Empathy in Action, Programs to Cultivate Inclusive Mindsets. I think this was just a really cool one to look at because it was a group of students from Ashland High School, like a youth-led program doing all of it in their CARES program, which is like a diversity, anti-racism, equity, and social justice group. So they talked about different initiatives that they've done at their school that possibly other schools could bring into their own curriculum. So the first they talked about was an LGBTQ plus panel, where basically it was a 90-minute Zoom call with members of the LGBTQ community who were like fostering empathy, connection, and education, and just teaching various things about the community and how people can be a better ally. So to kind of make an incentive to join, students were offered community service hours and adults were offered professional development hours. And basically panelists in advance, to make it more organized, were posed their questions that they had. And then there was a survey distributed to all students and teachers in the school beforehand, just about like, do they know what LGBTQ plus stands for? Like, are they comfortable with it at home? And then there were like separate questions for if the person chose to self-identify as part of the community. And then at the end, it was like an opt-in. There was not a mandatory Zoom call at all, but anyone who wanted to opt in could, for, and again, the incentive of community service hours. And then they also had a Flag Day ceremony where students and staff presented a country's flag that they either were from, had heritage from, or just connected to, and did some sort of demonstration or speech on behalf of it, and then just some logistics about their rehearsals and stuff that they did. And I was thinking, we do the Heritage Festival here, and I was kind of chatting about it, and it seems like something that could fit in there, so possibly, if it weren't to be put into the curriculum at Swampscott High School, just in general, something for the town. And then lastly, just a quick, they did a cultural choral concert where basically the songs specifically were by LGBTQ plus musicians or like allies of the community, or songs that resonated with the community. And then they had a slideshow in the background of different icons and allies from the community, just kind of like something in the background and some sort of education for the audience. So that was what I learned.
Wow,
No kidding, right?
Wow.
so far ahead of where we were in high school.
Wow. Can I just ask a question before we move? So I'm so curious. Can you tell us a little bit more about this program, just from your own personal point of view?
Of the CARES program at
Yeah.
National High School?
Yeah.
So they talked about it. It was a group that they put together with students where they felt like they wanted, because they have a very like diverse high school. With the Flag Day ceremony, they had, just because I thought it was interesting how cool, they had 23 different flags that were presented and 38 students and faculty that were part of it. So they have like a very diverse community there, and they just wanted to have some sort of program to like kind of celebrate and cultivate that, which was really cool to talk to them. It was mainly probably upperclassmen, but there were younger people from the school too. Just all that kind of came together to do these different initiatives at their school, which was very awesome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And then
Were you speaking for someone? Or is
Yeah.
this yours?
So the student isn't here right now, but lacrosse, sorry. But their first workshop was Beyond the Stereotype. They learned about how common it is for race, ethnicity, and culture to be mixed up. We learned through visual and discussion and definition how to be combat with the misconceptions that go along with the stereotypes. We also learned how to properly educate, identify others on the difference of race, ethnicity, and culture. They cannot just all be grouped together. We learned about the variationalized identities such as BIPOC, AAPI, and more.
Hello, my name is Jaylise Jacquez. I'm a junior and I was representing girls group. So my first workshop I attended was One Race, One Voice, and this was basically a podcast on anti-racism in school. So this workshop was run by someone who is a part of an American Freedmen Radio, and they created a podcast based on questions that were asked, and on our answers, they created a podcast, and they also are writing a book where our answers will be written down as well. So their definition for like what they were, who they were, and like what they wanted to do. So it was a time capsule project developed out from American Freedmen Radio, and they are a group of collected individuals who are descent of the emancipated people of the U.S. chattel slavery, and they're seeking to amplify unity in their communities through education, research, and arts and culture. So their advocacy for the One Race, One Voice project is that they want to document conversations and explore race as a social construct. They wanted to discuss ways to embed anti-racism in our everyday lives and how storytelling can be used as a tool for change. Some questions that we were asked were, do we believe that there is only one race, the human race? Why or why not? Ethnicity is a shared cultural identity based on common ancestry, language, traditions, and history. In shorter terms, ethnicity is culture created from your lineage and their cultural practices. Do you like to identify by your race, ethnicity, or both? Please share why. So for these questions, I felt I could really relate to them because many examples that people used were in schools or in workplaces where there are less representations of their race or ethnicity. They'd like to go over their race. So like I'd say my race is black or African American, colored, something like that. Or your ethnicity could be like if you came from a specific descent or your cultural descent. So I think we could have talked about this, like, I said Swampscott is a mostly American white school. So I feel like if I wanted that representation or I wanted to represent myself, I'd mostly go for the race card because that could go for more representation. So, but if I wanted to go on a smaller scale, I would go by ethnicity. So like being Dominican, but also when I'm Dominican, there's African descent or Afro-Caribbean descent also in that. So I think they mostly talked about how they wanted the representation of their chattel slavery and being a freedman, but it's also hard because, for example, someone talked about how they don't know what their ethnicity is. They don't know what their family has come from. They only know themselves as their race. So it's really hard to break that barrier of identifying as your ethnicity or identifying as your race. So I feel like for the podcast, they mostly wanted to break the barrier, but it was an argument of how can you break that barrier, and is it really easy, and can everyone also agree to break that barrier? Because you might not know where you come from, or you just might not know which one you want to go with by more. Yeah. Another question was, through your culture, we are able to celebrate our humanity. How does race erase ethnic cultures? And please share any examples where you might witness this. So I really agreed with this because I said stereotypes can really break your humanity's culture, and that's when stereotypes can break the race and ethnicity, so it's really hard to agree which one you want to go with and which one you want to seek. So my next workshop that I attended was the cultural connection, and it was exploring appreciation versus appropriation. So we talked about what cultural appreciation is versus cultural appropriation. Appreciation is someone who respectfully learns and engages with your culture. And appropriation is taking something out of a culture and misusing it in a negative way. You're impacting a culture negatively. So we also talked about how appropriation could be shown. So there's double standards. So if you're wearing traditional clothing from your culture, that is your appreciation, that is what you're used to. But if someone else came and wore it, say for a costume, that'd be appropriation, or saying the double standards like, oh, they're kind of like weird, like they have to wear that traditionally, but it's not what I'm used to. But if someone else had worn it, that's not from that culture, saying, oh, that could be cool, that's trendy, I want to agree with that, I want to wear that just because I think it's cool, and it's not in a way that, oh, that they wear that because it impacts their life. So appropriation, I had, for example, so again, the fashion or the aesthetic, doing it to please yourself and not thinking of the intent or the negative impact it can have on others. Religion and spiritual appropriation, I had language, so like, I think, so again, you can probably say like a word that is used or associated with one race and then someone else saying it, to misuse it or saying it's cool for them to say it, that'd be appropriation. Historical erasure, so like wanting to erase history and not being open-minded to it, so misusing it would be an example. And then cultural commodification, and then music and dance, so like dance, misusing a dance that could be traditional to one culture and then misusing it or trying to make it funny when someone would think it's not. So like kind of like making it as if it's a joke when it's something that someone's really used to. So an excuse that we really talked about in this workshop was that coming from good intentions isn't always right. We talked about having permission and really asking if what you're doing is right, and being like, oh, I had good intentions, but I didn't use it in the right way isn't always going to be a good excuse. And having permission from that culture and being like, hey, it's okay for you to do this. So for examples that we did was cultural appreciation was trying new food, and you can state your opinion in a respectful way. So there was a trend, and it was trying Indian food or trying food from a different place. And a question that we had on that is, what is the difference between respectfully sharing food from another culture and profiting from it in a way that can be exploitative? So you can try the new food, but it can be like, so there's a thing called rage bait, where you make a video about something to get views and profit from it in a negative way. So you'd say something that isn't morally correct or is rude, and you'd get your responses from it make you more like profitable. So that was like misusing it. And then another appreciation was there was a wedding in Dubai, and for the traditional clothing, wearing it, like, and to respect their clothing standards and all that. And then appropriation, we had like music videos, like dressing up as a culture that you don't come from for a trend or for a music video, or doing a hairstyle that isn't probably gonna be correct for you. And also just like, yeah, so like Katy Perry, and when she did the Egyptian music video and stuff like that, would it be an example of appropriation? And then, so for how to avoid cultural appropriation, we had a thing called SAGE. So it was support authentic creators, ask if it's appropriate, give credit, and educate yourself. That's what I had, and that's what I learned.
Okay. Wow. I'm sorry, what grade are you in?
A junior.
Wow. Wow. That was, I have a couple questions. I'll wait for
I especially appreciate that you made reference to the Katy Perry video.
Yeah.
Like we would all know, too. That was great.
The assumption. I appreciate that.
No, it actually makes me feel good. That was great.
The presentation was excellent.
Yeah, that was great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, they're still going.
One more.
My name is Ava, and I
Ava,
was
what
also.
grade you in? What grade are you in?
Oh, I'm a junior,
Okay.
and I was also at the conference representing the GSA, and I went to a little like an event workshop. Yes. Called Let Me Be Perfectly Queer. I would like to first preface that the word queer, as it is used today, is not a homophobic slur. It's an umbrella term to refer to all the members of the community, and sort of like a synonym to LGBTQ+. So the first thing I'd like to say is that it's like really important that all staff and all peers use preferred names and pronouns for all students, because students can't feel respected if they're not being referred to in the way that they would prefer. And it's important, especially in a learning space, that people feel safe and included in conversations, because otherwise it's detrimental to their education. Also, another thing I'd like to say is that being LGBTQ+ is not a new thing. Historically, being LGBTQ+ was welcomed in many cultures, so it's important to note that it is not new. Gender fluidity and nonconformity, as well as same-sex relationships, were accepted in many groups listed below, like ancient Greek cultures, ancient Roman, ancient Native American, ancient Egyptian, Thai, and Moor cultures. And it is in our current culture that it is stigmatized. So it's important to note that that is our biases here. Also, there's tons of history overlooked by school curriculums, and understanding history around the, queer people's fight for equal rights and the stigma they faced will lead to a decrease in homophobic remarks and biases because of the amount of sympathy that people gain from just knowing that these people aren't just people they see online, people that like they find to be odd, weird, stuff like that. It increases sympathy, and it increases like the visibility of the community, and it makes us less invisible. And another thing that is crucial is that the GSA in Swampscott High School and the middle school are allowed to persevere in spite of current events, because it's proven that these spaces improve the mental health of LGBTQ+ students, and I've linked a study about that in the speaker notes, if anyone would like to check that out. And also, on the top right is the this is a little bit of an example of the history that, like major events in history. Harvey Milk was one of the first openly queer elected officials in the U.S. He was murdered by Dan White at 48 years old, and Dan White only got less than 8 years in prison. So that was a major turning point in the fight for equal rights. And then the Stonewall riots, which occurred from June 28th to July 3rd, 1969, sorry. This was a 6-day riot that was in response to police invading a gay bar, and they were fighting for their right to exist, basically. That's just... in the next slide, I went to another workshop that was called Not a Phase, Understanding All the Pluses. And I said, they were saying there are many different identities that fall under the LGBTQ umbrella. So some people might assume that someone's like lying if they say something that they don't recognize, that they identify as a label that isn't in the acronym that they know. But it's important that everyone's accepted, and knowing that the LGBTQ has a plus at the end, and not every label is just making something up. It's usually not. And if you accidentally misgender someone, as staff or as a student, it's important that you don't make it a big deal, so you don't make the person feel othered. You can also simply repeat the sentence or continue with using the correct pronouns or briefly apologize, depending on the situation. If a peer misgenders someone, and it's not you specifically, you can politely correct them by, for example, saying, blank prefers they, them, please, unless doing so could put you or the other person in danger. If a student is targeted by someone for their identity, pull the victim aside to check in while also removing them from an uncomfortable situation. Give the option for them to leave before asking the victimizer to leave, since their response could be defensive or aggressive and could possibly do more harm than good to the student targeted. And another extremely important thing is this, you should never ignore a slur or other forms of hate speech. You should always speak up, report it to someone, because it's kind of hard to see here, but we didn't cover this at the conference, but we covered this in a different event, and I thought it fit in well with the topic at hand. Basically, every hate starts out with biased attitudes, and then it becomes acts of bias, discrimination, bias-motivated violence, and then eventually genocide, it sounds like an exaggeration, but no, that's genuinely how that starts. And it's extremely important that we stop it while we're ahead before we reach drastic points. So that's all I had.
Right.
The pyramid he was talking about, that's what we go when we do a restorative justice panel with students, with a group of their peers, if they've been, if they have said something that was a slur or anything like that, we do a whole restorative panel. We go through that pyramid.
Can I ask you a question? The term queer, so is that a term that everybody should be using, or people who are part of the community?
Honestly, people, especially young people, most people under the age of 60, honestly, it's a neutral term. Some older people might find it more offensive since they were the ones who were in the time period, but it is a neutral term, it's an umbrella term, so it's okay to use according to most.
So long as it's not.
Right,
Can
as
I-
long as you're not using
yeah.
it directed at somebody.
Yeah, and I was gonna add real quick, it does definitely, I think if you are referring to a specific person and you are unsure about if they would want to be referred to as queer or not, because I've met many people who refer to themselves as queer, and I've met people who don't like being referred to as queer. So I mean, I think it's always worth it to just ask if you're really unsure, and it definitely does. There are older people in the LGBTQ plus community who don't like being referred to that way. There are many older folks who do like being referred that way, and it also depends on, there are parts of the world where it's still, like here it is in America, it's become usually an umbrella term, especially for people in the community, but there are parts of the world where it is still used commonly as a slur, where those people would probably not refer to themselves as queer. So it definitely depends, but overall, especially with youth in the United States, queer youth in the United States, and again, even a lot of older people in the community, it is usually just an umbrella term. But I mean, if you're ever unsure, I think just ask.
Can I ask one more question? This is really about the chart. You read the chart, it's kind of stunning when you get to genocide.
Yeah, absolutely.
As you guys as you're teaching it or as you're learning that, what's your reaction in the classroom as you're going through that chart? I mean, I just know I see the word genocide and Jewish, and it's stunning to actually see that it's only 5 steps.
So I'm the nurse. I'm not in the classroom, but I was on a restorative panel with Ava, and so the ADL typically runs those panels, the restorative justice, and this is what they go through, and what they, it's supposed to be peers teaching peers, right? It's not a punishment, it's to educate them so they understand why what they said was so harmful. So when you show these kids the pyramid, and genocide is not very far from the bottom, when you are on that first tier, which is usually when we're having this panel, if you don't address it at the first tier and you normalize people saying things that aren't okay, then you quickly get to the second step. And then if you normalize that step, you just go all the way to the top, and it doesn't take very long. So it's really a matter of intervening in the very beginning to just make it so it doesn't progress. And we talk about that seeing the word genocide seems so extreme, but it really, you don't go straight to genocide. It always starts with just it becoming normalized of people speaking a different way and no one saying anything or speaking up and saying that that's wrong, and then it just ticks right up.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That was great.
This is also from a student playing lacrosse. Hers was leveling the playing field, reinforcing Title IX to the bridge of the gender gap in sports. We learned how gender inequality is hidden within high school sports programs. I think this is a big one. I kind of watched the other school committee you guys had, and this was addressed that the boys' sports get so much donation, so much money. And when it comes to the girls, we're told, oh, you have to fundraise more. You have to fundraise more. And fundraising only gets you so far. I think, which I really appreciate that you brought up, I'm the cheer team. We opened a JV team this year, and we were told if we wanted to have a JV coach, we would have to fund it ourselves. We learned how the gender participation gap in high school sports program has been threatened, the commitment to Title IX, which guarantees all athletes with equality. We learned how to take the appropriate steps in order to ensure equality among sports teams, such as promoting female sports on social media to gain attention.
Is it my turn? Oh. Okay. My name is Angela Humian, and I'm a senior at Swampscott High School. And I went for the Student of Color Association. So I went to this workshop named The Princess Saves Herself in this one, and it was really focused on women representation in the media today and in the past and how it has changed. And we started by, it was very active. We were moving around the room. And we started by with the icebreaker, and it was led by a college student, and she would put up some movies that we were all familiar with, and asked us if we thought that they had strong women leads, and there were 3 criteria for them. It was did the woman have any solo scenes? Did they talk about anything else but men? And and also, was there more than one woman in the movie? And surprisingly, there were a lot of movies that we watched today that didn't fit in a movie that has strong women leads. A lot of them, when you think about it, the woman is usually just a love interest or someone that's cute in the background, even today. But there was some movies, the Barbie movie was brought up, which was very groundbreaking, and a lot of people watched it that were doing a great effort at improving women's appearances in the media today. We also talked about some childhood movies, like Disney movies, and we talked about the princesses and what defines a Disney princess. And it says they are typically shown with idealized beauty and body types. Their costumes are often revealing and emphasizes these perfect bodies that are usually like we're not able to achieve them as a normal human being. And this can promote unrealistic beauty standards for young viewers. So they're usually very soft, very kind, and need to be saved by the prince somehow. But some princesses that we know, like the movie Brave, we all watched it, and I thought she was a princess, but she isn't considered the princess and she's one of like it was personally my favorite princess movie because she's so strong and she just does things for herself and challenges what's going on in her family and in royalty, and just does whatever she wants to do, but she's not a Disney princess. We also talked about heroes and how women are usually in these really sexy outfits, and they don't need to be in them, when men usually have protections and stuff, which would be what a superhero would need to fight and save the world, but they're always half naked, and it's just why? Right, and in high heels too. Would you fight someone in high heels? It doesn't make any sense. But we did acknowledge that there was some change, not that much, but they're more covered up today, and there's different types of superheroes, and they stand up for themselves a little more. So we are seeing progress, but it's just, we can do better. We also talked about, and on the next slide, we also talked about women in sports and our representation in sports too, and just the different uniforms that we have to wear from men. For example, volleyball, I personally don't think that people need to be wearing super short, tight shorts to play volleyball. It doesn't make any sense. It's not more comfortable than what a man would wear, and especially when you know that as a player, but you're still forced to wear that uniform because you have to conform to what's going on in society today, it can feel degrading. You just want to wear what you're comfortable in, and you're not allowed to. Also, we talked about ice skating, figure skating, how they're always wearing skirts, and just I don't know. There's no need to wear a skirt, especially if you don't want to, because there's other outfits that I've seen, but when you get to a professional level and you really want to advance yourself, you're forced to conform to these societal standards to progress and be accepted, when you just want to do whatever you want to and don't want to be put in this box as a woman just because you are a woman. We're people before that. So maybe, Krista, do you want to add anything to that? Because we both went to the princesses herself.
Did you talk about one of the movies we talked about was Lilo and Stitch, and if you're looking at Disney movies, how Lilo's sister is the hero in that. She was 19 years old in the movie, and she was left to take care of her little sister. So when you're talking about how Disney portrays, she's not in skimpy clothes, she's not in that, but she's an actual hero. So we kind of dived into that as well. And then everything else that Angel had covered with the Marvel characters, how all of the heroes, the female heroes, are wearing high heels and dressed very, not very dressed, and how that's not okay today for some of what we want to teach our next generation.
And also to add to that, Nanny, the older sister we were just talking about, is not considered a princess as well, and she has a normal body. I don't know if you guys know who we're talking about, but she's just this really normal girl that I think most of us would connect to more, and she's not a princess. And it basically says that we shouldn't look up to her because she's not what we should seek to achieve as women. We should look more like these princesses. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I just want to add something real quick. when we talk about Disney movies, Disney portrays princesses as so strong. We should look up to them. But really, like the two non-Disney princesses is Merida from Brave and Mulan, two women who fought for themselves, and they're not considered Disney princesses. And also with the new movie Snow White, I don't know if you guys heard the backlash it got, the live action, because they decided to not portray as the man saving the princess Snow White. She did that Snow White saved herself and saved her kingdom, and it got so much backlash. Everyone said, oh no, stick to the original, stick to the original, stick to the original. I think society, I feel like we keep trying to pull ourselves up, and society keeps trying to bring us down. And I think Disney movies are very big. I think that Disney can portray themselves to be better, because Disney is the reason why society, Disney movies are going down. Women in movies are going down. If you look at the Marvel movies, Black Widow, she gets no fame out of all the Marvel characters. Nobody watches her movies. And I think it's ridiculous. I think as all kids grow up watching Disney, and they should be changing how we're looking at things, and they're not. And when when someone steps up to change something, it's a problem, it's an issue. No, stick to the original that was made 80 years ago. I think it's ridiculous. Sorry.
And I hate to say this, but we have about 5 minutes left for this. That's okay.
You can go quick, Nina. So I did. Oh, the pictures aren't up there. There's pictures on mine. Sorry. Mine is responding to microaggressions to center belonging. We talked about. Oh, my name is Nina. I'm a senior. I'm here for SOCA. Sorry. I went to responding to microaggressions to center belonging. They talked about defining what a microaggression is, different types of microaggressions, and how they can really impact the person who's being microaggressed on, and how it can make you feel not welcomed. Even a small microaggression that someone didn't mean can really impact how you view your space, and it can make you second guess your safety for a lot of people, especially people of color and those in the LGBTQ community, because you never know where a microaggression can lead to. Today it might be a microaggression, but tomorrow it could be an act of violence. We also talked about how in a lot of schools, microaggressions are something you just sweep under the rug, something you kind of just blow past because you don't want to make a big deal out of nothing, and how that can impact the way you learn, and it can make you feel like you have no one behind you to stand up for you, especially for the younger kids, in middle school or freshmen who are less likely to feel comfortable in school already because they're going through things at home and hormonally and stuff. It can definitely impact the way you view school and the way you deal with friends and making connections with teachers and stuff.
And I don't know if we have enough time.
Go ahead, finish, yeah.
Okay, and
I don't, yeah.
Okay, I went to this other workshop that connects with this one. It was called Speak Up and Stand Together, How to Navigate Microaggressions Confidently. And it was kind of the same setup as the other workshop I went to, but the group was more diverse. They were teachers, staff, and students, and it was student-led as well. And I personally think that it was something we should replicate here at Swampscott High School. We were given different scenarios that included microaggressions in them, but a lot of them were very subtle, except for the person it was directed to. If you belong to that group, it was really obvious to you, but a lot of us didn't really notice that there was a microaggression in the scenario, and it just says a lot about different experiences and how something said might not impact you at all, but might change someone's day completely. And also how microaggressions, as Nina said, can just be swept on the rug, but if you just keep having to deal with them, it breaks someone inside and kind of becomes dehumanizing. And I really thought it should be replicated here because we got the opportunity to freely speak our mind with teachers and different staff on how microaggressions impacted us and also what we should do if we heard a microaggression with the support of teachers and a teacher's perspective as well. Because as students, I often think, oh, why didn't my teacher say something when this thing was said to me? But a lot of the times they might not notice that it offended me. So how we should speak up and what we should do in those situations and how to navigate it. And we also emphasize asking why something was said. If a microaggression is addressed to you, just ask them to explain why they said that thing or why do they think it's funny. And it kind of like opens this conversation about their perspectives and their worldviews and why they thought that was okay to say. And oftentimes the reaction is like, oh, well, it was just a joke, or like, you know what I mean. Like, they don't really explain it, and it shows that there's something wrong behind what they said, and it kind of helps changing people's perspectives and making a safer space for all. That was it.
I'll go really quickly. Sorry for next steps. We would like to go to more conferences like the one we went to. It really opened our eyes. We would like to have our own here at Swampscott, working on it next year, where we can have like workshops for the students and faculty members and bring in speakers. We really enjoyed the speaker that we had. And then also run workshops during professional development days for teachers. And also we want to make Swampscott High School more diverse, more cultural appropriate school. And we want students to feel included but also belonged. And thank you for your time.
Any comments from the gallery?
You guys are really impressive. Like, not only did you go to the conference, you like paid attention. And then you could tell us stuff. And honestly, I'm really proud of you guys for remembering so much and being so articulate. And I'm glad you feel so safe to share all this with us. It's like really, it's affirming. It's affirming that you guys are such strong women. Like, I don't even know if any guys went to the conference, but
nope. Didn't try to.
Well, their loss. But I especially love the idea of running workshops. Like, I actually love the idea of kids running workshops for the teachers. I mean, and also having, like, you guys have time during XBlock or whatever to explore microaggressions in like little bursts throughout the year. Would kind of be really cool. So hopefully our new superintendent's listening.
I'm so proud of you girls, young women. I think you're amazing. Just know that even though it feels like as you learn these things that it's so basic, know that when you go out into the world that you're still going to have to teach people this in just the way that you live and the way that you speak, and that's a gift now that you guys have. So you'll make changes.
Thank you.
And I just want to add, everyone was super impressive, and what you communicated really landed with me, so I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
Karen?
Yeah, I feel like you guys really, it sounds like you were in these workshops, like, what can I grab from this and bring? Like, you weren't just soaking it up for yourself, but like in a way that you could bring it back and teach it to other people. So, I mean, I think that sounds amazing. And I feel like we could talk about this all day. You know what I mean? But this is a great start.
But Superintendent, this reminds me about how you used the teachers. I'm thinking about that diversity workshop that I took with the teachers here as part of professional development, that they went to these and then came back and taught their peers. And so it seems like we have that expertise here.
We're working on it. We've been working on it for years and want to continue, but wonderful job. Wonderful job.
The only thing I'll add is, I'll take a lot of it away, but the inclusion versus belonging, that really is, I'm definitely going to think about that. That's something I had never thought of before, and I think it really is powerful.
Yeah.
So you guys did a great job. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you again. Committee comments, general topics. Karen?
I don't have anything.
Okay. Suzanne?
I don't have anything, except for I did want to talk about the email we got from Dr. P and the book that everyone's reading. Is that, I mean, I'm kind of excited about that.
She's coming to the April 10th,
Oh, good.
to be on the agenda.
Oh, good.
Presenting at that time.
Good. Yeah, I ordered it today.
Great. John?
Nothing, thank you.
Okay. Amy?
Nothing. I appreciate that you brought that up, Suzanne, because I had totally forgotten, and that was on my list of things that I was interested in.
Great. Noel?
I just have one thing. The band and chorus is hosting an open mic April 15th, so you can come. It's like for fundraising to make more money, so it's like a $5 entry fee, and then you get to watch all these great musical talents perform. So
What day is it?
April 15th.
Is that here?
Yes, it's here.
Great, thank you.
I think you have something else to announce.
Oh, I also committed to Clemson for next
Yeah.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Noah.
Thank you.
Yes, exactly. Great job. For me, I'm just going to wait until chair comments. Reports and discussions. Superintendent.
Okay, before I get into my formal superintendent's report, I'm going to have Mrs. Raymond, our Assistant Superintendent of Student Services, present an integrated preschool tuition proposal for FY26. As we go through this budget process, certainly the finance team, which includes Mrs. Raymond and Mrs. Stella, we've talked about how do we raise revenues in some ways. So we've been really analyzing fees. There's continued talk about, club fees and the athletic fees. And so tonight we look at the integrated preschool tuition fees.
Do you want me to bring it up?
Yeah,
It
it's
is.
linked to the agenda.
There it is. I just gave a little bit of a background the last 3 years, the last 2 years, and then what we're proposing for next year. But this year, we're going to propose a 10% increase to the tuition across the board. That's for the morning program. So the 5-day program would be $5,500. The 3-day program would be, I can't see that far. What did I write? What did I say?
3,300.
3,300, and then 2,200 for the 2-day. So that's a 10% increase. We're not going to increase the lunch bunch portion, which is $20. We did do a big increase the previous year. It does bring us, looking at our comparable public integrated preschool programs, we are going to be just a little higher than Marblehead, this tuition. I will say, though, where we used to be a little bit under the private preschools, we were a little closer to them. We are not close anymore. They have far outpaced us, almost double. So a 5-day program now is about, at some of the more costly private preschool programs, about $10,000, which was not before the pandemic. We were closer. I do think during the pandemic, we weren't raising our tuition at all. We held steady, and so I do think what I would project is there could be another between 5 and 10% increase for the next year too, because we should be, I don't think we're going to be ever as high as the private preschools. We never have been, and we do offer a preschool program where I think it can be attractive and affordable for more families. I think that's really important. We also do have financial aid for our preschool program too. That's what I propose. I do think that's reasonable. I think it puts us right where I'd expect us to be.
Just for our knowledge, what is lunch bunch?
So we have students who are on IEPs, who may be working on social, emotional, and social behavioral goals and activities of daily living, who will stay for lunch and for an extra time. It's a little less structured, so you're kind of practicing the skills that you learned in the morning in a more typical setting that's going to more mimic what kindergarten would look like. Well, some of our peer models who pay for the tuition, the families pay for them to stay 12 to 2. Okay. It's 4 days a week.
Okay. Any questions for Martha or the superintendent?
I do. I have a couple of questions. So what is the percentage of paying students versus kids who are here on an IEP?
So right now, we have about we get to about 65 to 70 students by the end of June. But in each classroom, there's 2 5-day programs, right, with 8 peer models, and then 3-day, 2-day programs. So that's 24 slots that would be paying tuition slots. So then the majority, 40 of our students are tuition free, obviously, because they are on IEPs.
Special education program.
Yep, and they should be free and appropriate public education. So some of those slots, though, could be students who are receiving financial aid. When we do our lottery, we don't know, like, that's not part of the process. But after they enroll, they might present information to us that they might be at a reduced fee or a free tuition. For the lunch bunch portion, though, we do not offer financial aid for that. People do have to pay.
Is there opportunity to grow the numbers of the people who can pay for it? I know that there has to be the right balance between the kids who are receiving services and the model students, but I ask this mostly because I remember when my kids were in this, thinking these educators are so extra educated that it doesn't compare to other preschools.
No, I mean, we definitely operate a little differently, obviously, than the private preschools. We don't probably have the same facilities, let's say, like we don't have a brand new preschool playground or anything. But financially, what makes sense is we only are going to offer the programs that we're required to for students with disabilities. And in saying that, we have, let's say, 5 full-time staff that are teachers in the program, and we have 8 support staff. The tuition that we collect, it amounts to about $120,000 per year, maybe a little bit more. So that's about a teacher and a half. So when you think about it, if I were going to offer a second class or another classroom, we would have to hire a teacher at, say $65,000. You wouldn't collect enough tuition to even pay for that. So we have to run no matter what. It's a mandated program we're going to run. So the tuition is very helpful, and it's also great that we are educating students with disabilities alongside their neurotypical peers. It's good for everybody. Yeah. I also do think we do sometimes keep some at-risk slots open when we're not sure what might be happening, but it only helps, we totally believe in the early intervention model. I can substantially change what that child's kindergarten year would look like. So.
And do you have any trouble filling those 25 spots?
No. We always usually have a waiting list.
Oh, good.
I will say the nice thing too is we have, it's often siblings. Siblings and cousins we have, but a lot of it really has stayed, people have heard the word of mouth and they all come back. Yeah. So it's a really nice program.
Now, this is something that the committee should be voting on. However, we inadvertently left the vote off, so it will have to come back before you on April 10th for a formal vote. So I'll have Ms. Kelly put it back on the agenda.
Does it impact you? Like, is there any time frame that you need it by?
We'll be sending out contracts to do families, but when is the next meeting? April 10th? That's fine. Okay. I can put out that it's the projected.
I would appreciate that.
Yeah.
Provisional vote?
So why don't we take it just a provisional vote?
Okay.
Anyone else have any questions? Oh, I'm sorry. The only thing I'll add is it was a great program 20-odd years ago, and it's an even better program now. I do agree with you that we certainly don't want to be coming close to what the privates pay, but we probably need to be more in the ballpark. And I completely appreciate you understanding that and we doing like a tier approach every year. So thank you for doing that. So can someone make a motion to give provisional approval of these increases?
I'll make the motion.
Great. Second?
Second.
All those in favor? All those opposed? It passes unanimously.
Thank you. Thank you. Before, again, I go into my superintendent's report, the link on your agenda has the school calendar as presented by Mr. Kalishman at the last meeting, and then I am proposing a different calendar, which is under early release days. And you don't have to open them. They are in those packets that Glenn, you and John have. I really appreciate Mr. Kalishman's view and sensitivity to the parent feedback and the family engagement feedback that speaks about too many early release days. My experience has been families always feel there's too many early release days, and if you really analyze the calendar, the majority of those are for parent conferences, which, while we're in the middle of bargaining, makes me pause and think, shouldn't we be bargaining for night conferences because most people work during the day and those conferences are difficult anyway? So that led me down a little bit of a rabbit hole that I understand, and I am sensitive as a single parent to so many early release days, but it's been my experience that, actually I will bring up my superintendent's report, or John, if you could bring that up, because there is something attached that, 6 early release days that we had this year is not out of the norm. My other concern is, as sensitive as I am to those families, John, could you go to my superintendent's report that's part of the agenda, because there is a link in there that I want to share with you. Oh, I'm sorry, I probably should have been steering the ship. That as sensitive as I am to the families and their care for early release days, I'm also sensitive to our responsibility to provide professional development opportunities for our teachers. For those that don't know, teachers get relicensed every 5 years, and in order to get credit, thank you, that's perfect, John. In order to get credit, or PDPs, professional development points, that get applied to your relicensure, you have to have 10 hours in one particular area of things. And so in order to get that 10 hours, we might need multiple years to do that. My third concern is that we have a new director of teaching and learning coming in, and I'd like her to be part of the conversation. If she comes in for a year and feels that, 6 is too many, we could do it in 4, we could meet the needs of the families and also meet the needs of the teachers, then I'm all for that. I feel like the good intentions, I'm a little bit more cautious, like, let's see for a year how it goes. So I'm proposing the 6 days following last year's calendar. But first, John, if you could click on that PD Day Survey, North Shore Superintendent's Roundtable link. Coincidentally, while Mr. Kalishman and I were talking about this, that's difficult to see, isn't it? There we go. So one of my colleagues from the roundtable sent out a survey to all of us, and the timing was incredible. And so if you look at this survey, Peabody has 2, I think Gloucester, Essex North Shore Technical has 1, and then Gloucester, I think, had 4. The rest of them are at 8, 7, 9, 10, because some school districts have every Wednesday, it would be more than 10, but some districts do have once a week early release days. So if you're comparing us to the North Shore, I don't think our 6 is out of whack. I would have to talk to Ben Lummis, who's the superintendent in Gloucester, and find out more about his 4 days. The other thing that we did away with, if you recall, we used to close the schools for election day and sometimes use that for PD at other buildings. So over the years, I went again down a rabbit hole and looked about the last 10 years of how many PD days we've had, and we've been about 7, sometimes with a full day in November. But I guess I'm just saying a long way to say my recommendation would be that we stick with the 6 days. So if you look at the early release day calendar, which is the version I came up with, it just adds in a professional development day similar to this year's calendar on Wednesday, March 4th, and on Thursday, April 2nd. So again, I followed the dates of last year, but that should be a Wednesday because everything's on a Wednesday, so that should actually be April 1st. So April 1st and Wednesday the 4th, because all our meeting days are on Wednesdays. And so I leave it to the committee. This is one of your responsibilities to weigh the pros and cons and to vote on the calendar. And so I put a possible vote because I didn't know if you wanted time to go back and think about it, or if you had thoughts and feelings on your own.
How many of the half-days are conferences?
A lot. If you look at, oh gosh, I'm gonna have to get my glasses. So we have conferences beginning in November 13th. Then we have conferences November 18th, November 20th, and some are just, middle school, and some are elementary and middle school.
Right.
Then we have conferences at the high school on December 3rd. early release. December 10th, early release. And then, and that's the majority of them, but what did I just count, 5? So some of those days are not professional development. 1, 2, we do have a day and night conferences, so about 5 of them.
Have we, I mean, post-COVID, have we thought about doing them on Zoom? Like, do they have to be in person?
The union and I have talked about this, and there was such a resistance to come in for so long because of COVID and post-COVID that we do have them in person, except if there's a family hardship. Part of that is because you want to show the work in front of them. You know, I remember back in my days where I'd have a folder for each child, and you wanted to go over the work and talk about the writing and talk about their progress and show them the documents. It's more, for me, about why are we doing them during the day when we know the majority of our families are working, and it would be much more convenient at night. And then the Zoom virtual piece is another conversation. But in analyzing this and thinking about it, for me, it was just about professional development being the district's responsibility to provide for the teachers. And being part of the interviews, the final interviews with Ms. Kent, I was really impressed by the plans that she has and the models she has and what she wants to implement. And I'd just like to give her a fair shot to do that.
I just feel like if we want the PD days, which I feel like we probably do, and the problem is that there's too many half-days, it's getting rid of potentially some of the
But we're not going to be able to do that for
conferences.
next year. It's definitely a deeper conversation,
Right.
a longer conversation, and perhaps it's something that does come up during bargaining, because this just opened my eyes to it. And Jason, if you want to chime in?
Do you want to invite?
Yes.
I was just going to say that.
Before you do that, just to kind of dovetail a little bit about the in-person versus Zoom. I think in-person is really important because it builds engagement and it builds a little connection between the educator and the parents. And you know, yes, especially as some of the parents, you know, maybe get to 10th, 11th, 12th grade, you know, they don't want to come in. However, I think it really is important because I think we've all heard, you know, there may be, oh, I didn't know that was going to happen, and they'll say, well, I must have missed that email, or I'd really prefer them in person. That's me. Sorry.
I was just going to say to Karen's point, the issue with if you get rid of a night conference or a half-day conference, then those parents still have the right to meet with their teachers. And what would happen at the middle school when we only had 2 night conferences, 2 half-days, the conferences would basically leak for months because it would be the teachers' prep time. They were meeting with
Yeah, like I
families.
wasn't saying getting rid of them. I was saying let them Zoom in or something, and then it could happen almost at the teachers. Like, I'd rather do it after school from 2 to 3. Do you know what I mean? Or something
I feel
like
like
that.
this is a good opportunity to, like, with the family engagement, to find out what they want, to your
Right, what
point.
and what works for the families.
Like, to your point, are afternoons really difficult? And do we need more? And it makes sense what the teachers are saying about being able to show the work. But I wonder if there is, you know, while I agree with you that you definitely want to form that relationship, I think that there are, you know, I want to be mindful of people who don't have the kind of flexibility that we have. And, you know, I want to be mindful of maybe parents having to come in from Dorchester and how difficult that could be.
Those we are, you know, allowing Zoom, not conceding, but we are allowing Zoom. I think what it just brought to light is in 2025, this is something that we really need to look at.
Yeah.
How are we doing it? It's definitely a project moving forward. Are we doing it to best meet the needs of our families?
Yeah.
At the same time, is the calendar meeting the needs of our families? So if you can Zoom from your desk at work and take a 15-minute break, is that easier for families? And do they send the packet home knowing that's going to be a Zoom? I seem to be going down a lot of rabbit holes lately.
I know, and I'm sorry, and I feel like I cut Jason off and you didn't get to finish.
No. And then the other thing we talked about, and I don't even know for a long-term solution, is maybe we have a full day of conferences.
Right.
And
Right.
just, you know,
Right.
get through a whole bunch of
I
them.
was actually thinking of that, like, why don't we have a full-day conference? Like, this is something to bargain, though, but the day doesn't start until 2, and it's a 2 to 8 day, right? you
A
know.
full
or-
day we have talked about, and I would absolutely
Right, but
love
I'm
that.
just saying, don't do, I mean, you know, make it.
Right, because the teacher can't be here from 8 in the morning till 8
Right, they
at
can't
night.
be from 8 to 8, right? So make it a, you know, morning off and conferences all afternoon and evening, or a split shift, like, you know, 7 to 9 and then
Right.
whatever. But I think that, Zoom is a good option if the parents and the teachers are in agreement to do it. Because I think that there's plenty of work that's online that you can show
Yeah.
teachers. You have like all the writing in the high schools online, that, you know, math assessments are online. I think there's a lot of stuff you can share online already, and we have the ability to upload any documents
And
online.
share their screen, they do.
Right,
They do.
so they have, I mean, we have all those projectors, I mean, they can put anything on their computer to share online, and I just think that's the way to help people get to conferences.
Well, we're certainly not going to solve the conference problem tonight, but
No.
I do
Yeah.
request a vote on which calendar the school committee, we need to get that out, and we need to get it to Nahant, and which calendar the committee would like to support.
So I'll say, I know I voted in support of your calendar at the last session, and so I hope you don't read it as me not supporting it. But I was concerned about the PD days, and I think, especially with the arrival of Sarah Kent, I'd like to see her start out with more than less, and have somebody who's, you know, have her figure out what she wants to do.
Right.
It could be changed the next year, so.
Right.
Yeah.
I want to dovetail what Amy said too. I really did like the 4, the minimum, but after going down my own little rabbit hole, I guess I am a little concerned, and you know, I think this is something that we could definitely revisit. This, it's a bigger topic, and you know, given that we do have a new person who's really running the show in Ms. Kent, that I have no problem with going back to 6 days, but does anyone else have a thought or a comment?
I do have a question. We don't provide or pair up with the Y to have after-school care on half-days, do we?
Yes, we do.
Oh. So are kids who are not typically in the after-school program allowed to make use of that?
They would have to be signed up for them, I think, in advance on those days.
Okay.
Is that the way it works? Yes.
Because it seems like if we could have that flexibility for a parent to opt into that.
Their numbers are so high. So as a parent, single parent, what I would do is sign up for every Wednesday anyway, and
Yeah.
then we know that those early release days are on Wednesdays,
Yeah.
so my child is signed up for that.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the parents who maybe don't usually have after-school program, you know, for whatever reason, that maybe proactively, they're like.
We
The
can-
numbers
just
are-
need it for
the
this.
numbers are just too high. They can't,
So they could not.
They,
do
so
that.
they
could not,
can't take
no.
extras on
No.
Wednesdays. Okay.
they're at 200 plus, I think, every day.
So maybe that's.
So, but that's the beauty of, we used to do, an early release day on a Tuesday one week, a Wednesday, and then the Thursday. They're all Wednesdays. So
Okay.
I'm signing up for Wednesdays for childcare whether I need it or not.
So maybe somebody can do a fundraiser and run an after-school program that day for.
Sorry, Glenn, if I can just add one thing.
Absolutely.
I didn't have such a negative reaction to this. I think hearing that some other discussions, like Zoom and some of these other things are going to be happening separately, that gives me a little more comfort, that this is not, you know, it's not going to be the template for the next 5 years or anything like that. So that was kind of the lens I was looking at this thing through.
Suzanne, anything?
Yeah,
All right.
I wasn't invested in the old one,
All right.
I'll make a motion to approve.
since I wasn't here.
Right. Can someone, you already made the motion? Thank you.
To approve what?
So Amy made a motion.
Oh, I'll make a motion
Thank you.
to approve today's version of the calendar.
Right. Can someone second, please?
I'll second.
All those in favor? All those opposed? And we will go with your six.
I appreciate that.
Six.
And Mr. Kalschman and I have talked about it, our differing opinions, and there is no right, or there is no wrong. It is just a gut that I have, and I appreciate that.
Sure.
I'm sorry, John, I'm back on my superintendent's report.
Sure.
The next item on my superintendent's report, it says DEI directive and our core strategy. Putting this on my superintendent's report came from an email that I sent to you all, and I sent to my leadership team, and I just want to publicly discuss it because it seemed to slow down directives from the federal government. A little bit is related to education in the last couple of weeks, but they were coming fast and furious. And when I heard about DEI and, you know, making that go away and not doing it, I think I sent to the committee, I'm committed to our district strategy and core work, which is based on DEI, and I'm not going to change our path or recommend changing our path, but this came to light because on March 4th, Mr. Kohut shared a website with me that's here, and it's called a DEI snitch form. And if you open that link up, it says, it is basically asking you. No, it's a snitch form where you can, we don't have to share it or link it there, but basically, it's saying that schools should be focused on learning, and if something happens in your school district and you want to report it as possible discriminatory practices, you can do so. And so my whole thing to the committee and to my leadership team, and Martha was like, thank you for saying that, is like, we're not changing. And I've linked here our core plan and district strategy, which is based on, you know, community opportunity, respect, and equity. And so I just, as you have a new superintendent coming in, one of the things that he'll be working on with his coach is to look at, create a district strategy. And, you know, when I became a new superintendent and went through that program, there were many new superintendents who said, oh, we have a strategy, and it goes through 2020, whatever. So there is no reason, of course this is going to be tweaked. Of course Ms. Kent's going to come in and take a look at it, and the leadership team's going to work with the superintendent and work this summer to adjust it. But we have a very good plan and a very good direction that we've been going in, and it just was upsetting to suddenly think that that was going to be put to the side. And so I'm just here publicly to say to the committee that I don't recommend changing our path.
Can I ask a question? So I appreciate that update, and I guess my question is it's not about your plan and your strategy. That we'll put that to the side. Is there any concern about non-compliance with any government directives with?
They've been very gray. They come down softly, and so there isn't, nothing that's come our way about DEI has said, if you don't do this, then this will occur. Like, in the past, attached to federal funds. Like, nothing has been concrete about being attached to any dollar amount. And once that happens, obviously we'd have to change course and think differently about that. But right now, they're just thrown out into the universe without the consequence being attached to it. And I'm not saying that I need a consequence to follow what's being put out there, but we know this is right for students and families right now, and I would suggest staying along this path.
I mean, look, our girls just were sitting.
I know,
right?
I know. Look at all those groups of students that went there.
I don't think there's anything in the core plan that is crazy. This is all about, it is about education.
It's about belonging.
It's about learning.
But look.
Well, I'm pretty sure that's true of a whole bunch of other stuff that's happening right now.
I know.
I mean, listen, the administration the federal administration would disagree with you, but I think that we have the good fortune of being in Massachusetts, where we have a governor who is fighting for us.
Right.
And with the same, with the same morals and so forth.
And we'll monitor it. If it gets, if it starts being attached to federal dollars, then certainly we'll have to revisit it.
Secret language.
I mean, do we get a lot of federal dollars? We just had our Title I cut.
Yeah.
Well, it remains to be seen what happens with all that.
So I was going to say this during my little soliloquy as chair comments. I think I mentioned this a few weeks ago. I just want to reiterate to the community that we are inclusive here. It's our job. Our job's to be inclusive, and that's what we will continue to do. Students of any type are welcome in our district. We will teach those students to the best of our ability to make them feel belonged. And I am very pleased that we are going to continue with this strategy, because what is going on at a federal level, I am hopeful will not last an eternity. It will last a short time. So I'm very proud of the work that has been done, continues to be done. And you have my full-throated support.
Read that, thank you.
You're welcome.
No, it's interesting to piggyback on what the young ladies were talking about it is beyond including. Our plan is about making kids feel like they belong. And that was definitely the key there.
Well, Glenn and I were at a conference at the JCC
Right.
about 6 months ago where there was a fair amount of discourse about how terrible DEI programs were, which sort of took me by surprise at a Jewish institution.
Yes.
You know, and I guess I'm not looking at it, or I don't believe that we are looking at it as a movement so much as an
embedded practice.
Yeah, I think
Right.
that's what I was trying to say.
That's exactly how I would say it.
It's an embedded practice.
You know, belonging, equity and belonging isn't about some .org.
Right.
You know, it's about how our kids feel, and I think those girls were testament to it tonight.
Right.
And I didn't want to interrupt their flow, but Mr. Kalishman and I were on a Zoom meeting today, and it's interesting how I've evolved over the years, and just a town employee who was meeting with us genuinely asked if we ask kids about pronouns and how normal that is for us now. Like, yes, and if you don't know, we were even encouraged to say, you know, so I'm my pronouns, and what are yours? And kids are very, very comfortable with that now. And even how many, many years ago that they was uncomfortable, it's just not anymore. And that is the reality we live in.
Right.
And
Well,
that's
I
about
can tell
belonging.
you go to a college tour, and, you know, granted,
Right.
I'm not, you know, at Ole Miss, but, sorry, Ole Miss. But that's the first thing that they start when with the tours, is you introduce yourself and you give your pronouns,
Yep.
and nobody
Right.
blinks.
Nope, it's just become, and I thought that.
Same thing with the universities in Canada, so.
So the next item on my agenda is just a brief update with Sarah Kent's transition plan. There is a little link here, and it just talks about the days she's going to be here. She's going to be here Wednesday, April 30th, and it's an SHS day, Thursday, May 8th, Wednesday, May 14th, Wednesday, May 21st, Friday, May 30th, and Friday, June 13th. And I can tell you, this was her skeleton schedule, but was it last week? It might have been early last week. She got her laptop from Miss Mackie Knowles, and all of a sudden I heard her voice in the high school. I was in my high school office, and she had come over to meet Angela Chamberlain, her administrative assistant, and they got right to it. And so far on her calendar, she has days at each of the schools. She's going to attend faculty meetings. She has meet and greets. She has department meetings. She's meeting with the Innovative Pathways crew, the guidance at the high school, literacy specialist at the elementary school, attending a leadership meeting, and attending faculty meetings. And that was last week when I looked at her schedule. So she is jumping in wholeheartedly. The plan and the idea that she really become a face to a name in our community before the teachers and educators go on summer break is really going to happen, so we're thrilled with that.
Great.
Calendar adjustment for 24-25, I just wanted to make everyone aware that April 2nd, Dr. Bacon did this as a practice, and I really like it because we suffered one year, is that she books an extra early release day in the event that a snow day falls on a scheduled PD day. And so that April 2nd date that we had, I believe I sent out a parent square saying it will be a full day now. It was a tentative date. We did not use a snow day on a PD day, but I do think that's a great move, and it is in the calendar for next year.
Great.
And then June 17th will be the last day for elementary and middle school, and June 18th for the high school, because it was the national election and I did close the high school that day. And the final item on my agenda is a bit of a lengthy story, but I'll try to.
Can I just ask you a question about the calendar?
Sure.
When you sent out that email about April 2nd now as a full date, did you get any response? Nobody cares?
No, and it did say tentative. Actually, who reached out to us was the teachers, like, what's the PD going to happen on April 2nd? And we're like, wait, no, that's an extra day.
Okay.
So, no, we got nothing.
Okay, good. And-
So,
Superintendent, before you go on to the next
Sure.
item, I just want to ask more of a logistics question.
Sure.
Is this last item something that's appropriate for the public discussion, or should this be an executive session discussion?
I was told by the attorneys I needed to bring it to the school committee, and there was nothing mentioned about executive session.
Okay.
So just a little bit of history. I mean, it's going to go before the select board as well, but are you counseling me that it should probably be
I
executive
am
session?
not counseling.
Yeah,
because
because I'll take your counsel.
Municipal law is not my area of
Okay.
expertise. It was just, since it involved an individual, I didn't know if we were getting into murky waters here. That's-
With names.
I think so long.
I just wanted to ask the question.
No, no,
As long
no.
as they're given the opportunity and they know it's happening, and they
Yes.
are given the opportunity to join the conversation.
Right.
And this individual does know,
Right.
but now you're making me question this. How about I table it till the next time?
I think my only concern about tabling it, and
I know, I do.
just to be completely candid, John and I had a conversation one-on-one about this. That was followed by a one-on-one conversation with Amy and I, and the privacy laws are a
I
little.
wish I knew before I put it on my
I
report.
know, are a little gray in
But
this
you're,
area.
but council said it was okay.
Yeah, as long as council said it's fine.
Council said to bring it,
Then
it has
do
to
it.
go before select board
Do
and
it.
school
And
committee.
if there's anything that we ask you that you can't answer, just say, I
yeah,
can't
no,
answer
thank
it.
you.
And just to be clear, that part I wasn't aware of, that council had
Yeah.
said it's okay to bring it to the school committee.
Well, we have to. I was planning to just have people sign because, but I'm actually not comfortable right now presenting it regardless of what council said.
Really?
Yeah, you have me a little concerned.
Spooked her.
Is there, if we table this until we,
No, nothing's happening till July.
okay,
So
so,
it's fine.
out of an
Yeah.
abundance of caution,
We all know I'm a risk taker, but I'm
Yeah.
not feeling risky right now.
right, yeah, out of an abundance of caution, why don't we just
Make
get like
sure.
a formal
Sure.
opinion?
Let me just say this. This is on a public document.
Mhm.
You put it on your
Report?
agenda, and your agenda is available to the public.
Mhm.
So the horse is out of the barn.
Okay,
I agree.
okay.
You can always apologize.
Yeah, and there's no secrets. The person,
Is he aware that we are discussing this
Yes.
tonight? Okay.
he's aware it's on the agenda and,
It's your call. Again,
Okay.
I wasn't aware of that last piece about
well,
what
it's,
council
The
said,
horse is
but
out of the barn.
okay.
So
It's,
now let's stop speaking cryptically.
well, it's really about my lack of knowledge and, you know, I'm an educator at heart. So when I want to build a program and do something that I think is going to benefit the kids, as always, they're first and foremost in my mind. So bringing a comfort dog and getting a comfort dog was a real win for our SRO program. And it has been sensational. I mean, let's face it, she's a social media rock star. So what I didn't know is at the time that there is a law and there is guidance from the Department of Labor that the handler of a comfort dog needs to be compensated for care and, what is the language? Handling and care while off duty, and that's under the Fair Labor Standards Act. And so there was a discussion that Officer Wilson got SORA in October of 2022. And because I didn't know about this law, Officer Wilson didn't know about this law, somebody else brought it to Officer Wilson, and he's like, I'm not doing this for that reason, like to get back pay or anything and to get compensated for that. She's one of his dogs. We had a meeting with the police chief and the police union and Officer Wilson and the interim town administrator, and we just came to an agreement.
So the SRO did not file this?
He was unaware of it, and somebody else filed on his behalf, and then it had to be,
And then, because it's the law.
because it's the law, it had to be done. What I will say is, in true Officer Wilson style, he's not doing this for any kind of money. Sora is his dog. If you see the way she looks at him, it's just, it's amazing in what she does for our children. So long story short, we drafted a settlement agreement. The potential liability for that since October 2022 could have been $30,000. It's not. It is going to be $15,000, and moving forward, we came to the agreement that he gets a half-hour a day. Instead of an 8-hour day, he would work a 7.5-hour day to make that compensation moving forward. And so the school committee needs to sign it, the town administrator needs to sign it, and Officer Wilson needs to sign it. But he truly just wants this behind him. He never thought anything about this, but, you know, he said he'd take $1 if the law would allow it. It doesn't allow it, so.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't allow it.
So, and that's why he has negotiated the time instead of the payment for the
Correct.
future.
Correct.
Where's the money coming from?
Well, I was told that the general government wants no part of this. This is my program, and it would be taken away if I couldn't find the money, and so I'm working on that.
I thought we split his salary with the.
We are
We did,
two-thirds.
But not the program.
But not the, they made no decision. Nobody, I was told, nobody went to them and asked about a comfort dog. This is my decision, and so it's I have said, committed to Cheryl, I have some ideas of how to fund that. Officer Wilson was even willing to do $5,000 over 3 years, which is what originally was gonna come before you. Darren called me and said he would be fine with that if I were gonna still be in the seat, but mistakes can happen inadvertently, and it could create a bigger problem. And so he suggests that it's not $50,000, that we find it and we pay it out.
Okay. Again, I'm not versed of what Officer Wilson does every day. What is, so he's gonna, works 8 or 7.5 hours a day. Is all that spent in town? Like, are we charged for anything that's out of town?
So Officer Wilson is part of NEMLEC, which is a community organization that calls out for emergencies. So
Right.
for example, when there are deaths of a student in another community and they call all the comfort dogs out, he would go out there.
Okay.
He attends certain trainings that he has to do. Any of the training of tracking of SOAR, he does on his own time. I'm just going to say that Officer Wilson puts in more than 8 hours as it is now. So
it doesn't go unnoticed that, and I understand that as part of NEMLAC, he is traveling, but it doesn't go unnoticed on social media that Sora is often spending the day in Waltham, or spending the day at St. John's, or spending the day somewhere. And I think for a community that is particularly questioning every dollar that we have, the optics of that aren't very good. And so I guess my question is, is the SRO a member of NEMLAC, or is it particularly Officer Wilson that is the member of NEMLAC? Like, how does that work?
it's the SRO, and he gets called out. There's rotations of who gets called out with each crisis.
Okay.
He's on a team, and when his team gets called out, he has to go. There have often been times, though, where you'll see him and all the area comfort dogs. There's like 10 dogs at a particular site.
Yeah.
Again, that's a request because they support each other. If something were to happen here, they would come here as well. I can have a conversation about the calls out, but I know it's not him just saying, oh, I'm going to go over and show up. It's being requested because he has a comfort dog to go there. Now,
Do they come here?
They have come here.
Okay.
They have come here. There have been times, actually, I can't remember, in recent years, probably in the last 3 years, when we've had a bunch of comfort dogs here
Okay.
for different scenarios. So we do benefit as much. Officer Wilson, like all of my leadership team, keeps a calendar, and so I can see where they are every day, and if I need a meeting with them, if I can schedule it. And so I can review that and just kind of make sure they're NEMLAC calls. But he doesn't just say, oh, I'm going to go visit Salem schools today. He gets called out, and so does Sora.
Is there like a substitute SRO, like, or substitute person in this building that can oversee Sarah?
No, because she's actually his dog now. She's one of his 3 dogs.
Like, I just didn't know if,
He's not a K-9.
I just didn't know.
But when he goes out of the district, there's always coverage.
No, not for him, I was
Right.
thinking for
No.
her. No, but I was thinking
We're
she
in
stays
more
behind,
need
just
of
because
comfort
she
than
doesn't need to go to
policing.
like a professional training that he might need to go to, unless it's
He
related
may
to
leave
the
her
dog.
home on those days. He might not take her to the,
Yeah, no,
you know, they have
I'm just was
gun
wondering if
training.
she could just lay in, the,
Well, I think the point being that we're probably more in need of comfort than policing.
well, she won't like sit still in my office. She's
Yeah.
always looking for
As hard
daddy.
as you try.
She's always, I have treats in there and everything, and she's always looking for daddy.
So,
Yeah, I know.
so perhaps part of his education on social media could be that this is explain what that is.
Or another tragedy has occurred.
Yeah.
Here's Sora
Just
bringing comfort, yeah.
A little bit more information.
Context.
I think would
I
alleviate some of the questions.
I think
that
there's
we
a very
always
good
have.
point.
I think fairly, eyes are on the schools for spending money well, and we know that that is a good spend, but I know I've questioned it, like, why is he at St. John's? They should have their own dog.
But they call in all the area dogs.
Okay.
So he may take a picture, on occasion I see there's pictures of him and Sora and other dogs, and sometimes he just focuses on Sora, but I know he's there with 5 or 6 other dogs. Because they're trying to get to the whole school or a particular grade level, and one dog's not gonna cut it.
And that's part of the program that we're
A part of.
Great, okay. Any other thoughts, questions?
yeah, there's one, sorry, do you want to go, John? Oh, there was one paragraph about him, Officer Wilson adopting the dog if the dog needs to retire. And then there's another one about when Officer Wilson needs to retire. Is that like, so Sora is just his? Like, there's no date in there, like, there's nothing that says if he needs to retire in a year, but Sora's still good for, she's still young, but it's.
I think she would age out before he will,
Yeah,
And the reason is protection, because the way this conversation originally started with the town is that the dog was gonna be taken away from him.
Oh.
And so, and the program was gonna be disbanded. That's how I was approached. And that's what led down this path. And so,
Right.
that is protection.
I just didn't know, it wasn't like defined really well, but
That's the reason
but I agree.
behind it.
It's like weird that it even says adopted, because it's his dog, but.
Do we have a formal, is there a formal description of the program? So that if there are questions, that it isn't just I know that it's not just an SRO with a dog in the school, but is there a
Comfort dog
program,
yeah, a program,
purpose,
a
goal,
purpose, yeah,
mission,
job description?
yeah.
or
Well,
just
not
like
so
the
much job
vision,
description,
the mission of this, why we have this in the school kind of statement.
I can go back to when we originally
I mean, I
did it,
remember we.
and we can
talked
put
about
one
it so much.
We
together.
approved it.
I don't think
Yeah.
to be honest, I don't think we have one in writing. We've just seen it in action. We've seen the kids that are dysregulated calm down when Sora comes in,
Yeah, you
It's
just
helped
know-
with our
You know
special
how we all
education
feel about data,
programs.
like, write it
Yes.
down, like, this is what we want the dog to be doing, and this is how well he's doing.
I
she's
could
doing
put
it.
Officer Wilson on it, he'd get it done for me in a day.
Yeah, I
What
just-
has she done?
I just think,
think-
I just think for historical purposes,
Right.
and hiring the next one
I think
down the
I
road.
anticipate somebody on some committee here in town asking us about that, so it would be great to have
Right.
That'd be great, all right.
We'll get on it.
So, with that, can
Yeah.
someone make a motion to approve the SRO K-9 agreement as written?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
All those in favor? All those opposed?
Great.
Okay, so it's 3 to 2.
I'm opposed because I would like to know where the money's coming from first.
Okay.
Yep, that's exactly my thought.
All right, that's fine. Just because we did it kind of fast, just for public and for whoever's keeping minutes out there. A yes vote was Karen, myself, and Suzanne. No votes were Amy and John. All right. You're going to send that to me via?
I actually have it right now, so you can
Okay.
sign it before you leave.
Great. All right.
Thank you, and that concludes my report.
All right.
Can we have an update on where the money is coming from before it gets paid out?
Yes, it won't be paid out till July 1,
Okay.
so yes, you absolutely can.
So that now prompts a question from me. Is that going to be paid out in the budget for this year or the next year?
FY '26.
FY '26.
Okay, so the one that we're
That, yeah.
$600,000 short on.
Yeah, 700.
I'm going to be honest, I'm looking for donations.
Okay.
I think a nice GoFundMe or a Puppies in the Park kind of, bring your puppies to
We
meet
don't have it
Sora.
in the budget. I'm not,
Right,
I'm not telling you anything you don't know. And so,
There's plenty of,
So why don't we put our heads together and figure out maybe how we can come up with that?
I think fundraising
I'll
for it's a
send
great
it to you.
idea.
I need to fix this again.
That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's
We can have some fundraisers.
I think a puppy party with Sora. And you pay, $20 to get your puppy in the party or whatever, right?
Yeah, it's a great idea. All right, thank you, Superintendent. Assistant Superintendent of Finance and Operations, Miss Stella, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So I'm here today before the committee because we went through the RFP process for our extended day. Our contract was up with the YMCA, and so we had to go out for requests for proposals, which we did. We received a lot of individuals who pulled the RFP paperwork, but we actually got 2 official proposals. One being the YMCA, who's our current provider, and then the other provider was Alpha Best.
What is it?
Alpha Best.
Okay.
There was 3 individuals that scored the proposals. First, you have to look at the actual proposal itself before you can look at the price. And the YMCA was the most advantageous proposal that we received them from the most responsible proposer. So I am recommending that we award the contract to the Y for extended day. It would be from September 1st, 2025 through August 31st, 2028, with the sole option by the district to extend for 1 or 2 additional years. That's my recommendation.
Current contract was just 1 year, right? Just the current contract they're working under?
I'm sorry, what was it?
Is the current contract they're under just 1 year?
It was an initial 3 years with options to extend.
Oh, it was?
Oh, so we did extend it already?
Yes, we did, yeah.
I'll make
We were up on our ability to extend that contract, so we had to go back.
So it was like the same contract, even though it was being administered over 3 schools before?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Can I just ask this silly question here?
Sure.
So the contract term is the 1st of September 2025 through August 31st. Are we at all concerned that school starts prior to August 31st?
Their existing extension covers us through the end of
Okay,
August.
thank you. All right.
So that's why the new contract starts September 1st.
Okay, thank you. Any thoughts, comments?
I'll make the motion to approve.
And someone second?
Second?
All those in favor of approving the extended day contract for after-school care to the YMCA of the North Shore, say aye.
Aye.
Any dissents? None, it passes unanimous. Thank you, Ms. Stubb. Okay.
Can I ask the Director of Finance?
I was about to, but no, you go. You go.
In your estimation, what are our next steps? That's a big question. I think we have, and it's not just you, I guess, it's really the 4 of you, in terms of where we go from here. Karen and I were talking about it, and, when we left the meeting the other night,
Bit bigger budget question. You're looking like it's not about the why, where we're going with the why. The daycare.
Sorry.
26.
Sorry.
26.
Sorry, I was
We're going to 29.
Sorry, I was under the Assistant Superintendent of Finance and Operations section and not the award of the YMCA.
I was with you.
And
I knew where you were going.
I
I knew where
apologize.
you were going.
I apologize, Ms. Stella. And actually, since it's really not, the question really isn't for you, but I guess to all of us, since we are talking about finance and operations,
Where are we at and where do we go
Yeah.
from here?
Do you want me to be really frank?
Yes.
Absolutely.
I'm sure.
So we all know that the meeting that Ms. Steller and I had with Ms. Sarro, Mr. Cresta, and Mrs. Leonard went really well. And of that 660, I want to remind people that was the second meeting, and the first meeting, Mrs. Leonard wasn't able to attend. That second meeting, looking at the town, the general government budget, and scrutinizing it the way that we have always scrutinized ours, we came up with 440,000. So if, it was my hope, but we know that, hopes don't always happen, that they dig a little deeper, and they will be able to find the additional money in that budget. What we offered up, and to say it publicly, is after going line by line through our current budget, we can only offer $20,000 in legal fees that we think we might have extra because we didn't know if interest-based bargaining would go back to traditional bargaining. So that's $20,000.
Possibly.
Possibly. We don't know how bargaining's gonna go. Which led us all to saying, okay, what fees should we look at? If there are athletic fees, why aren't there fine arts fees? And Mr. Kalishman has started that conversation. And what are if people aren't collecting club fees at the high school with Fidelity, then that's a problem. So we started to look at ways to build revenue in that way without, hitting families' pocketbooks too hard. Again, a multi-year plan on athletic fees. If there's a fine arts fees or club fees, is there a family cap? Like, those decisions can't be made quickly, but they're conversations that we're having. The other piece to this is, and I lost my train of thought, seems to be happening a
Well,
lot.
so I want to say, to the point of fees, Glenn pointed out in the meeting that we had the other night about the grief that we take when we do raise fees, and that Naomi pointed out, well, the town hears the same thing when they raise taxes. It's just one of those things. So, I think it's to be expected that nobody's going to be happy about paying more, but if people would be more unhappy if it was cut.
I'd rather raise a fee than lose a teacher.
Right.
There, we kept emphasizing at those meetings, and I think I've said to you individually, or maybe as a group collectively, that, we're not joking. We're not posturing.
Right.
There is nothing to cut, maybe $20,000.
I think the most disappointing thing that I learned on Monday was that after all of the posturing over the past few years, that the process for the municipal side was not zero-based budgeting.
And not nearly as robust.
Well, I mean, the
That's
thing
what
is
we do.
that if you zero-based budget, these things happen naturally. And we've been held to a standard that I'm really proud of, because I think that we've accomplished a lot with a little, but I was gobsmacked when Ms. Sorrow said, no, they don't, zero-based budget.
And I mean, I feel like there's a serious lack of checks and balances on the budgeting on the town side when it's initially created and how it's looked at. I don't
What
know
we
what the answer
discovered
to that is.
there's luxuries still in their budget. Those luxuries for us, and we cited specifics, went away years ago when we were trying to fit in to the round peg in the square hole, the square peg in the round hole.
And so they were open to it?
Oh, they were open to it with strong encouragement.
Okay.
Right.
Good, well, good.
So, but there were a lot of those, a lot of buckets of, oh, yep, we did that 6 years ago. Yep, we had to do that 5 years ago.
Right.
So it was the first time, I think, they were actually pushed, and I think the last meeting last Friday was a really great meeting, and I think there's more work to be done on the town side, and I don't think I'm alone in thinking that, so.
Right. I mean, I agree. I think, just to bring the community up to date, this body met with the Finance Committee last week. We had agreed that it would be an educational meeting, and we, as a group, educated them on how we do our budget, from soup to nuts. They had, the Finance Committee group had some very good questions. They also left there with definitely I didn't really understand that about special education versus gen ed. I didn't understand that this bucket of money is only X% only after X dollars. Oh, I didn't really know that of the myriad of private schools, quasi-private schools, can range to $450,000.
Then they haven't been listening, and that's just what's most disappointing to me.
I actually heard them, I mean, they do have an issue with turnover.
Yes.
And
Right.
having,
I
I
do
mean,
understand.
there was someone on there that had only been on for 2 weeks.
Right.
And there's someone else that's only been there 6 months, and then there's
Right.
someone at a year. Like, that's not, I mean, they do need to be educated over and
Right.
over.
Right.
And I think this board, I mean, just to listen, we went around the room, we talked about what our occupations are. When we have 4 people on this side that are trained in finance.
Right.
Like, I mean, this is, we're in a place that's better than the other 2 boards, just because we've been together and there's the expertise on here and the way we've been budgeting over the last few years so carefully. And I think that, I mean, that's a strength that we have, and I think that we just need to continue to be patient and just continue
Right.
to keep educating them because I know it's a pain, and I know it feels, but you know what, we have the presentations made now, so we'll just pull them out every year.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
And I don't mean to dismiss that, because I am sensitive to that, particularly when Eric said that night. But what I think my hope was, we had the joint meeting. Here's your opportunity to ask those questions. Look at this stuff before you get here, and whatever you don't understand, ask us that night. And maybe people aren't comfortable in that big public forum to do that, and even though, you know, FinCom meetings are recorded, maybe that was more of a comfortable place. But I guess when I say I was disappointed, it's because we came together for them to really ask their questions.
Well, to be fair, the conversation that I had with Naomi ahead of time, and Naomi really spearheaded this meeting. You know,
Naomi Dreeben. just
Naomi
for
Dreeben,
everybody.
on the Finance Committee, former Select Board member. She wanted to sort of, just level the playing field a little bit and just have everybody really understand where everyone else was coming from. And I think that Suzanne brings up a really important point, which is, you know, that not only is there a lot of finance background on this side, but there's also a lot of tenure on this side. And I think that we have to think about our process, meaning the 5 of us, and know that each year, part of it is going to say, who do we need to bring up to speed?
Right.
And know that that's going to happen every year.
Yes.
So,
I mean,
and that's something that I think we have approached with irritation in the past that is unfair, and that we just have to.
I think when you just say that, I think we can have a program with us, like
Yeah.
with the finance committee, and saying, who are your newest members?
Right.
Let's meet one-on-one and go
have a
through the
workshop or
budget. Let's
something.
do a school budget 101, or let's.
It's not a bad
Yeah.
idea. Yeah.
Right.
Because,
I mean-
look, you know, Naomi said that they don't really have a training program the way that we do.
Right.
Cinder said that it does
Well-
exist, but clearly nobody's used it.
Right, but even if they have a training program for municipal stuff, like our budget is different in the way we do it and our pressures, you know, and I think that it would be in our best interest to
Yes.
have little in-service workshops with their new members.
I completely agree. I mean, it was,
I volunteer you,
yeah, it was just interesting to even,
because I got some other committees.
yeah.
You're working on
It was just interesting
I
as
didn't
we
make it
walked
to the meeting
through
the
the
other day.
steps of how we got to the budget that we were talking about. You know, how far, you know, first your meetings with your team, way back when, before we are not even a glint of being involved. And you have a budget, and then you guys look at it and say, no, yes, no. You do that several times, then it comes to us, right? And then you have, you know, I want something, Amy would like something, and you nod your head, no. And we kind of go through that, and we come to a budget to, you know, as we said, we've all saying the same thing, there's nowhere. This is the singular budget. I was really happy we had that meeting. We offered to do it again if that was a case. Just a couple of my notes, really, we've already talked about it. We understand that fees are expensive to various groups who want to use our facilities. I don't want to apologize for that, but it just is what it is. And we are not even near the top of what we charge. We do our best to understand the various groups, but it's expensive to open a building, run a building, have teams there. We have to make sure the building's ready for the next morning, et cetera, et cetera. I am really pleased with your meeting that you guys had. Thank you very much to Ms. Leonard from the Select Board for really digging down into that. And, you know, we are hopeful, I am hopeful, that this will work out. I also want just the community to know, without getting into specifics, the school committee is in active negotiations continually with the Swampscott Education Association for 3 units, the main unit, which is the teachers, and then the paraprofessionals, the 2 units there. We've had substantive conversations. We continue to talk about various pieces of information, and we're all very hopeful that will continue to go in a positive light, and make sure that we live to our budget, yet provide a workplace that is comfortable and is adequate for those educators, et cetera. That's what I have. Subcommittee policy.
Actually, can I before we jump off of this?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Just going back to the FinCom meeting from
Yes.
Monday. I wasn't there in the room, but I was on Zoom. And just a couple of takeaways. I totally agree on, you know, Suzanne's suggestion about some education, but I think a couple of the pain points that just listening that the Finance Committee had were around special ed, around circuit breaker, especially if you're a new person coming on.
Yeah.
It's going to be completely new. So maybe a more targeted, rather than go, like you said, Glenn, soup to nuts on the budget.
Right.
It's like, here's the budget, but let's drill down and just focus on these,
Right.
you know, maybe circuit breaker and special ed, and maybe, because it came up in that other meeting we had with
Right.
peer comparisons.
Right.
Why that's not maybe always the best comparison. Again, just some of those big rocks that keep coming up, address
Yeah.
those, and then get to the substance.
And to your point, John, I mean, when we were talking about special education superintendent, you know, as I've lived the world and, you know, through Martha, reminding them or educating them that it's not just K to 12. It's age 3 on their birthday to age 22 on their birthday. And that is our legal responsibility. And there was definitely we really do that? Yes, that's the law. And so, to John's point, I think it would, we are just going to have to repeat that, because, you know, there were definitely some new members there who just have not been exposed
I appreciate that,
to this. Can I just one more thing if we'll move on to policy? I do want to publicly thank Max Casper for joining us for the utilities conversation, which, you know, talking about convoluted is very convoluted. And Max did a great job, and I know Max and Charlotte had a conversation prior to that. So thank you publicly to Max.
Wait, and I'm not done either.
Yes, Karen.
So,
You go.
I know. So, I was thinking, because I still don't know what the next steps are, right? When does the town have to finalize the budget, like, to get it on a warrant, to get it to town meeting? Like, what are those dates? What are we up against?
I don't think they have to do that until that night, that they
Like, they meet
that final
10
number.
minutes before the meeting?
They can.
Technically, yeah.
Okay.
They can put a placeholder in.
Okay.
They can.
So, my idea was that we put something together, whether it's a letter or a document, with our thoughts, what we want the next steps to be, that comes from the whole committee, that we all sign and that we send to them, and I'm willing to, like, put a draft together that then we can all look at and work on. But I think we need something in writing that we're looking for. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense to me.
So by that, do you mean like some of our more philosophical questions, like how, like our questions, for example, around revenue?
Yes.
Okay.
Specifically, maybe some suggestions, some ideas of where we think we can meet this gap.
I mean, I just keep coming back to, Ms. Stella, what you've said, which is between, there are really three things. With the additional $10 million that has come in, and so now it's really 5 because they've already done some of the refinance work with it. So that doesn't seem to be, it doesn't seem to be like visible anywhere. So between the $10 million, between the additional state aid, the Chapter 70 funding that we're going to be getting next year, there was a third thing.
My question's on local receipts, which I can't seem to
Yeah,
get anybody to answer.
That between those three things, this budget is fundable. And I think that while I appreciate that the town is going through their budget and finding places to help us, I think that the real issue is that between those three spots, this budget is affordable.
The other piece I wanted to add to that is also our assessments have gone down as well, too. So, the town's seeing some budget savings as it relates to the assessment that we receive for the North Shore Tech, whatever.
Oh, so like the Essex Tech has come down?
It has come
That's
down.
20 grand.
And so, as it relates to local receipts, too, in that conversation that I think kind of where you're going with a little bit, Karen, is that at the end of the day, it's a local receipt estimate, right? And the town creates that estimate. And typically you're quite conservative with that estimate. That's what helps drive your free cash year over year. But in a year and the town has always beat the financial policy. So the town has a financial policy that free cash is 3 to 5% of the operating budget. Every single year, they're over the 5%, right? So far above the top end. What I'm saying is that this perhaps might be a time period with which the town is a little bit more aggressive with local receipts. And the consequence of that would be that free cash would be certified a little bit less than what the town is used to, but it would still be within that financial policy guideline. So that's where I think there is also some flexibility with that number, especially if, we're at 440, we need another, 200,000 or so. I certainly feel that even in just looking at the local receipt estimates, there's certainly $200,000 there without even adjusting their fees that they could make adjustments to. So, and just to follow up, I just pulled up the budget calendar. The select board has to vote their recommendation for the budget on 4/16, according to the budget calendar that was
2 weeks.
sent out
2 weeks.
by Ms. Saro.
So I'll get on that quicker.
Great, thank you.
Rather than.
Before we move on, I think a majority of us, over the weekend, I learned of a problem with the track at Upper Jackson Park. And I'm bringing it up just because I think it's public knowledge at this point.
I've heard from a number of parents.
Yeah, and I also heard from the chair of the select board about the track. And I emailed Superintendent Ms. Wolf regarding that. I had not heard of that. And so it definitely looks like the track on Upper Jackson, I don't want to use the word condemned, but it's certainly not usable for track meets. It certainly does not appear to have been a today problem. It certainly has been around for a while.
I'm judging by Miss Stella's face that.
Yeah.
That
News
this is
driven.
news.
Yeah, I've never heard.
Yeah,
Okay.
this is so problematic.
Right, so
In so many
it's problematic on many, many levels, but I'd like to just stick to, this is something we had no idea what was going on. I will, again, I heard from a parent on Sunday who I trust and don't, and know that when this parent asks a question, it's coming from the right spot. That was again followed by an email communication from the chair of the select board. Amy also received a couple questions on it. So while I appreciate Ms. Wolf's answer, the track really is owned by the town. It's similar, let's say, to Abbott Park. It's owned by the town, and according to Ms. Wolf, that Gino is hoping to get it on capital for next year. I don't know if that means for FY26 or FY27, but to be candid, it opens some questions about why we didn't know.
Is it unusable?
According to Ms. Wolf, it's
We cannot host meets there.
we can't host because it's not appropriate. Doesn't meet whatever standards.
Who decided that?
A consultant.
Yeah, I guess a consultant. So here I'm just going to read it. Okay. So
Brought in a consultant, like I'm just really.
okay, yeah.
So it's not damaged or anything? I see, this is the first time hearing it too, so
Yeah.
it's not damaged or
No, I
or
think-
anything like
Definitely
that?
cracked. I mean, there's definitely, there's,
Yeah.
I mean, I've.
So here, just so again everybody knows, because
Know anything?
so
Yeah, we knew like 2 weeks ago. The whole school's been talking about it.
yeah. So on
Last one to know, here we are.
Yeah. On Sunday evening, I received an email. I sent an email and I said, hi Kelly, I was asked over the weekend about the track at Upper Jackson Park. Is the track usable, ? Is there a problem up there that we don't know about? Please let me know. Kudos to Ms. Wolf. She did get right back to me first thing Monday morning. Hi Glenn, the track is unusable for practice. I think what Ms. Wolf meant to say, track is usable for practices but not for meets. I'm just sorry. It needs to be replaced. When we had a company out last spring, so that would be the spring of '24, to look at it, they told us not to host any meets as it was a liability. The track is a town facility, and for what I understand, Gino Cresta is hoping to get it approved as a capital project for next year. And again, I don't know if that means for FY26 or FY27. So while I'm really appreciative that, the town is looking at this, I am concerned that we didn't know about it.
I mean, I didn't see it on the capital list.
I'm
as
gonna
far
be a
as
little bit.
today.
I'm
Hold
gonna
on,
be.
just if you could, especially for the amount of money that we are charging for track and the number of students, especially at the middle school.
Well, I think also, I mean,
No,
this
high
affects
school.
our budget too, because now we're sending buses to out of
Yeah.
Right,
away meets.
Yeah, what
Right.
the heck?
And, Yeah.
And track is our largest sport.
Right,
There
so
were, I
it's
think,
more than one
100
bus.
There's like 120
Right.
kids.
right,
yeah.
And so, I have to say, I'm not as gentlemanly as you
Well,
are.
you talked me off the ladder.
I am rageful about this.
No, I feel something like a
Because
burning.
the fact that this was known about last spring and that we didn't learn about it, the fact that you didn't know about it, the fact that to say this is a town property, so it's not for us to worry about, when if this were the turf field, you can bet we'd be all over it because our kids are there. And I think that, this goes back to some of the issues that I have with equity here in our sports program, that, this is the biggest team in our district, and they are treated like the redheaded stepchildren. They are, the fact that at a minimum, with 120 kids, at $400 a pop, you're talking about what is
Lots
it?
of money.
50 grand?
400,000, 40,000, which is I can't drop
Call
my
it
zeros.
50K.
No, it's more, it's a gigantic amount of money. And as having a kid who is on that team this year, the expectation is that each kid is going out and raising $100. So where's all this money going to? Because it's the lacrosse team that's getting $4,000 worth of helmets. I'm sorry, I know I'm looking at you, and I know that you're as in the dark about this as I am, but I think this is beyond the pale. I just cannot even believe that you weren't notified about this and we weren't notified about this. And to our knowledge, do we even know that it's on the?
I did not see that on the capital list that we
Yeah,
saw.
I've never
at the-
seen it either, so.
We were at a
I'm-
joint meeting and they put the capital list up, right? And we were talking
Yeah.
about
And that's-
windows
yeah.
versus canopies, and there was
Right.
nothing on there about a track.
Right. So that's why I'm assuming it's FY '27. But what gets to me here, and I'm kind of defer to John about this, when I see the word liability, and we have all these kids up there, and there are other, there are other sports up there who use the field, and now they're on the track. What happens if something happens? So I am really,
If the football team's field was unplayable, we would know about it.
Yeah.
Right, and I was just gonna, words matter, and I don't know, if that's her word or if that's an expert's word. I guess, the context matters, how that word's being thrown around.
You
For
mean
us-
the condemned or?
The liability
Yeah,
part.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, I don't know
If
who's
someone who
throwing that
wants to
around.
sell us a new track tells us we shouldn't
Right,
be using this
exactly.
track,
Exactly.
just,
Yeah.
like,
Okay.
is that a real opinion, or is it,
Yeah, do we need a
is it a
second
sales
opinion?
pitch?
Yeah.
I have to be, Max has been on vacation.
Yeah.
Well-deserved, and so I really want to circle back with him when he comes back next week. He keeps me informed of everything, so I'm a little surprised when I got your email Monday. I had no
Well,
idea.
I think, I feel like the field is his purview. I mean, Gino gets flat, Max gets tall.
Yeah, he's
Like, that's
got
how I think of it, right?
facilities.
Right.
Right? Like roads and pipes
Right.
and
No,
fields,
that's-
and Max gets buildings.
Right.
I was gonna say,
One's
yeah.
horizontal,
is
one's
that a
vertical.
facility thing, or is
It's a
it-
really great way to do.
Could I add something?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
please.
from what the students have been saying is that there's roots growing up between the one panel of the track, so you can't physically put hurdles there because someone can get hurt if you trip on a route, but 80% of the track is fine. So I don't know, I don't know any of the legal jargon, but
Right, is there is there
liability wise, they can run practices there, but because of the hurdles and how you have to set them up, there's something with the routes, and so it's most of the track is okay, but there's just one section that's an issue.
It would be nice to see if there was a fix for this season
Right.
too, that was cheaper than,
They're putting kids on the
6
bus.
buses.
Right.
Or whatever, right? I mean.
Thank you for that, because I haven't been up there lately, but I'm also looking at the time, and I missed my 8 o'clock hour. Okay, so whenever you're ready to hit the road, you're welcome to.
Thank you so much.
Noel, again,
But
congrats.
glad you didn't go yet.
Congrats.
We're very proud of you.
So I guess for me, and you guys can chime in, I really would like an update on this. And again, I could tell from your email back to me was, what? I really think that we need a formal reply and just maybe a visit to find out what's going on up there. Whether it, probably should be both Max and Miss Wolf.
It's really unfair to those kids who are paying $400.
Really unfair.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
All right. Thank you for the reminder, Amy. Policy update, any policy update?
So, yes, and if we're going to be technical here, it doesn't say first read.
Right.
So I can have Nancy add that. I think the last time we were here,
We can do a first read. Do you have it electronically?
not electronically.
Oh, my God.
So if, I wasn't able to send it around today. I wasn't in my laptop with me, but
Right.
I could send it around. We could do it next time. You guys can look at it beforehand.
I'll put it on April
Yeah.
12th.
Like I said the last time, the problem unfortunately was that the version I had on the school committee laptop disappeared. I could not find it. And
Right.
I had to start over, so it's done. And it's the same version that it was, I'm pretty sure, so, but I'll send that around. Apologies on that delay, but yeah, I think that would make more sense for everybody.
And which one is it? Is
This
the
is the cell phone, yeah.
Okay.
And also, the Wellness Committee met this week and has a draft of the wellness policy. There's a couple little changes they want to suggest, so I think that maybe next meeting, someone could come. I'll ask Emily if she can come, and just,
Emily Silly?
yeah, she's our wellness coordinator. So we'll have her come and just do the policy. It's something that we have to do every year. We have to do it mostly so Maureen Kellett can get our USDA,
Stands.
yeah, and get the free food as long as it's being delivered.
All right.
So,
Till I got that.
All right, thank you, everybody.
So Glenn, will you just make sure you add that
Yeah.
to the agenda?
Yes.
I
The-
took it down.
Yeah, like the wellness policy.
All right, thank you very much for that.
So, I'm sorry, Glenn, just.
Of course.
to be Super to confirm on that. So we got the first read for the cell phone policy. Actually, it's called the electronics policy. Just to make sure that gets on.
Okay.
Yes, I've
Thank
got
you.
that too.
Appreciate it.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, thank you, John and Suzanne. Any public comment?
Anybody there?
Anyone, I have a couple people up there,
Anybody
actually.
even watching?
Yeah, we got a couple people. Anyone out there? Joe, any comment? No, okay.
No hands.
No one's raising their hand, so we will thank everybody, and we must have done a great job answering everybody's questions this evening. We're going to move on to actions and votes, donations mostly. So we're going to start with Swampscott High School girls softball boosters. The boosters have donated $2,200 for an additional coach, an additional softball coach, I should say. So thank you very much to the Swampscott High School girls boosters to donate $2,200 for an additional coach. And
Do you have any color on this, Glenn?
I don't.
Like that the program was going to be cut unless they did this?
So it's interesting. I don't have any color, but
So we don't have a
So I'm-
JV coach?
So I'm on the boosters.
oh,
I
okay.
can add some color to this. For the last 2 years that I have been on the boosters, the guidance from the athletic department is that we owe them $2,200 to help pay for coaching. I do not know if how long that has been the standard. I also don't know how long or what other teams are required to pay for their coaches.
Like, do you think baseball pays for their JV coach?
Okay, can we hold on for 1 second, because now I'm confused. Okay, so I just signed an MOU. Okay,
But hold on, let's, okay,
okay,
I don't know where you're going with this, but.
okay. So I just signed an MOU because between the SEA and us, because in the current contract, we have stipends, 3 stipends for girls softball. We have varsity coach, as it was written, varsity coach, junior varsity coach, freshman coach. Just because of numbers, there's only going to be 2 teams. It's going to be varsity and JV. So the MOU that I signed, and I asked various questions, was to have 3 coaches total, 2 at the varsity level and 1 at the junior varsity level. So my question is, I'm very much appreciative to the boosters. Is this for a 4th coach or a 2nd JV coach, which to some of you who I spoke to individually was something I thought, because most of the JV team is young girls, 7th and 8th grade. And my comment, I think to many of you, again, one at a time, was shouldn't we have 2 JV coaches, given just the age of those students? So now I'm confused. Is this a 4th coach, or are we paying for one of the coaches and we have $2,200 in our budget that's extra?
And Amy's like, no, I was just told to give
I
you
was told
$2,200.
that we write a check for $2,200.
I think Mr. Calhoun.
I don't know for sure. I can tell you that, just as a former varsity coach, and that we would fundraise for the assistant coaches. So I don't know what the numbers or who's doing what, but I will tell you that that is common practice, that you have to pay for your own assistant coach.
Assistant coach, not
Assistant
JV coach.
Not JV coach, assistant coach.
All right,
So I'm wondering if the 2,200 is for an assistant. I don't,
So that would be
And not for nothing,
that would be a
this number
4th
is
coach.
still higher than what the cheer coach earns.
Okay, but we got to table that though for right now, 'cause that's going to confuse matters. So now I'm confused.
One indignation.
What is this, where is this $2,200 going to go to? If it's going to another assistant coach, I have no problem with that, but we actually need a
I think
little
it is fair,
color
I think it
on
is
that.
fair to say, and I would feel confident in saying it is going to go to one of the coaches.
Then we just won back $2,200 in our budget.
No.
My understanding. Because that
No, I
money.
don't believe so. I don't believe so. I don't think that is in our budget. I think that is, that is not in our budget, which is why they are asking the coaches for, the boosters for it.
But because they asked us to sign the MOU based on the stipends that are
Yeah,
in
the
the
stipends
collective
that are in
bargaining
it,
agreement.
right.
So
This
that
is
would've been-
coming from, I think it might be an assistant coach, but we don't have clarity on that, and
So in my eyes, it's an assistant coach, that's a fourth coach. I have no problem with that. That was one of the things that I thought we
I think
should
they're
have.
making
We
a
need
lot
to
of
get clarity
assumptions.
then before we
How
vote
about-
on this.
I
How about,
know.
can we just remove this from the consent agenda?
Yeah.
And, because we're not really, I mean, it's not the consent agenda. Can we just remove this
Yeah,
for tonight
we're gonna-
and find out about it?
We're gonna
Because-
table that if you don't mind.
Because we should understand if
Right.
we're paying for 3 coaches right now, and
Especially if my name's on the MOU. All right, we're gonna table that again to the softball boosters. Thank you to the softball boosters. We appreciate the donation. We wholeheartedly will accept your donation. We just don't know where it's gonna go.
When we know what it's
When we
for.
know what it's for. Okay, that's probably a question for there's a lot of questions on that. All right, next, from Ms. Virginia Dodge of Swampscott. Ms. Dodge donated $100 in the memory of Mr. Dick Duran for the high school football program. The donation to athletics for the high school football program. To Ms. Dodge, thank you very much for that personal donation. We very much appreciate it. Ms. Dodge actually hand-wrote, if I just could say, the enclosed donation of $100 is made in the memory of Dick Duran to be applied to the Swampscott High School football program. Thank you, Ms. Dodge. Thank you very much for that very nice donation in memory of a very important person in this community. I think, no, I have 2 more. So next we have from the donations from Martin Barrett. Martin is in White Plain, Tennessee. Martin donated $25 to the athletic department in memory of Coach Frank DeFelice. The donation, again, is to the athletic department to be used as so fit. To Mr. Barrett, thank you very much for that donation from all the way from Tennessee. It just goes to show the reach of Coach DeFelice. Thank you for that. Again, if you wouldn't mind, Mr. Barrett, again, hand-wrote a note to the Swampscott, Mass. School Department. Please accept our donation on behalf of Coach Frank DeFelice. He was a great educator, leader, teacher, and coach. His example and impact affected many students. God bless him and his family. Best of luck to Swampscott. Warm regards, Martin Barrett. Thank you, Mr. Barrett. And again, if we could just make sure that thank you notes go to all of
They
these
do.
individuals.
Yep.
Thank you.
I have some clarity if we want to go back to softball.
Let me just read this, and then we'll
Okay.
go back to softball. The last donation that we have is from Mr. William Peaver of Marblehead. The donation is approximately $400. It is for science materials, including glassware, beakers, test tubes, etc., electrolysis kit, and magnifying glasses. It's the science materials are being donated to be used in our science classrooms. To Mr. Peaver, that is a very generous donation to our science program. We all know there's the cost of various items for our students is skyrocketing. So this donation is very well appreciated, very well received, and on behalf of the school committee, I say thank you very much. I will now turn it over to Ms. O'Connor.
I just have a little bit of clarity on an email regarding softball. It is that time of year again from our coach where I beg you for money. It's possible, if possible, I would like to request to once again have funding for a second coach. An additional coach I will pay for out of my own stipend. I asked Becca Buckland to please change the verbiage in the teacher contract so that we can have 2 assistant coaches like the other teams have. Hoping if it passes, this will be the last year for a coaching stipend request. So it sounds like she's asking for some parity and that they're hoping that this will be in the contract next year.
Okay, so now,
So I don't know if that you are signing is putting that into the contract.
It was only putting it
It's
into the
not?
contract for this year, not for next year.
It was just for this year.
Okay.
But see, now I'm even more confused. So if the varsity coach, and I'm sorry, I should remember her name.
Coach Coppinger.
If the coach is now going to,
And many coaches do this.
okay.
Many
right,
coaches
right. We can
pay-
have that discussion in a different day, because
Like I know that.
you and I are in complete agreement about this. But
Many
now-
coaches do this. They
but
pay
now-
out of their own stipends.
But so if the coach is paying something out of her own stipend, are we now looking at 5 coaches?
I have no idea.
So
don't
I
think so.
I would
think there's
really.
4 coaches
I
in
think,
total.
I think I will say though, I don't think I can only go baseball, softball. No assistant coaches are paid by the school department, by the athletic department. So when she said about the parity issue, I hear it, I understand it, but it's not like the baseball team gets an assistant coach paid for by the school and the softball team doesn't.
But I guess, thank you for that, Mr. Calisharan.
That's good to know.
But I'm still confused about what
The number.
I signed, after asking many, many
I
questions.
think it's to pay for the coach who, I'm not going to name publicly.
All right, that's fine, but now I have to, because in the contract, it was in what I signed, and in the teacher contract under stipends, it is really clear that there are 3 coaches, there's a dollar amount with each coach, and then, so if that's in the
So this is
contract.
the 4th coach, and that we're paying for.
But also, the coaches were varsity, JV, and freshmen.
Correct.
So if we're not having a freshman team this year, there's no freshman coach.
So
Right, so now we have a JV and a varsity, so maybe that's an assistant for
But-
JV and
so-
varsity.
So that's what I first thought, but what the MOU, sorry about that, what the MOU was to move the coaches up the ladder, to have a varsity coach.
1 year.
For 1 year, have an assistant varsity coach, and have a JV coach. That was, and I don't even know why we even had to
So
go
that's
down that
3.
road. And this one would be 4. That's
I
my,
think what's confusing, it says additional
Yeah.
in the form here.
Right.
And I think you're thinking
Yeah.
assistant. So
and
the
I'm thinking
additional-
that we're funding 3 coaches. This is funding a 4th.
Yes.
Sounds like.
All right. So are we comfortable approving this, or should we wait for more clarity? I mean, unfortunately, Ms. Wolf's not here. What's your?
I'm
thought?
recusing myself from the vote.
Right, thank you very much.
It sounds to me as if this has been past practice. They're trying to get it straightened out. We're in the middle of bargaining. I would recommend you just approve it. I don't think there's anything nefarious going on. I think if Ms. Coppinger is putting out there what she's asking for, and it has been done in the past, I
And the
would say.
boosters are happy to pay it.
I would say,
Okay.
allow them to run the
I
program.
think it's just it's a question for another day, whether or not, if we don't have a freshman sport for a year, do we just bump that freshman coach up to an assistant and pay the assistant because it's our practice not to pay assistants?
But that has to be the language within the contract.
Right, but I'm just saying, it's like, it just seems like that's what it is. Like either, or we don't bump that person up and we continue to have assistants being fundraised for. Like, it just has to be one of the other practices.
Hold on,
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
sec.
Yeah, another day.
You know, just hold on one sec, please.
Maybe after next spring.
Hold on one second.
I will go on record as one of the boosters that our coaches are fantastic,
Yes,
as to be expected, but I want to give a shout out to
So,
Coach Coppinger.
so,
right, can I,
we good with the other,
yeah, so, again, we'll approve it, but I just want everybody to hear this, okay? This is where I'm completely confused about this. Memorandum of agreement by and between the Swampscott Education Association and the Swampscott School Committee. Effective for the 2025 softball season, girls softball season, the undersigned parties agree to modify Appendix C, Coach's Salary Schedule B of the SEA agreement as follows. Reallocate the JV and freshman softball coach stipends, high school, $26.60 and $22.89 respectively, to be paid to 2 assistant varsity coaches for the FY25 season. The parties agree to revisit this allocation in FY26. So
That sounds right.
so we're going to approve this, but I really want some clarity, please. I think they should. I think the team should have 4 coaches, 2 of each. I think it makes sense to me, especially where there's a bunch of 7th and 8th graders. I think, a little bit up, I just think you need a second set of eyes there. So I'm gonna, we'll read this and approve this, but if we could have some significant clarity on this, that would be fantastic. Thank you. All right, so with that, just let me read it again, so just for posterity's sake. This is from the Swampscott High School Girls Softball Boosters, $2,200 donation for an additional coach, an additional girls softball coach. Very much appreciated, again, from the boosters. So can someone, so just, I read that. So now, can someone make a motion to approve all of these?
All of them? I make
please?
the motion.
Okay, someone second, please.
Can you split them out?
Yes,
So
okay.
that I can
Right.
not vote for them.
So that's for the first three, and just for, again, for posterity, I will read them. Thank you. This vote is for the donation from Ms. Dodge, the donation from Mr. Barrett, and the donation from Mr. Peeber.
I will make a motion to approve.
Someone second, please.
Second?
All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? It passes unanimously. Okay. Next, can someone make a motion, please, to approve the softball booster gift?
I make the motion.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? That's 4-0 with
Abstain.
Amy recusing herself. Okay. All right, that was a lengthy discussion. All right, lastly, almost lastly, we have the consent agenda. The consent agenda is designed to expedite the handling of routine and miscellaneous business of the district. School committee may adopt the entire consent agenda with one motion. At the request of any committee member or members, any item or items may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda for discussion. We have 3 items on the consent agenda this evening: regular session minutes from March 13th, policy subcommittee minutes from January 27th, 2025, budget subcommittee, school committee of the whole, December 19th, 2024. Can someone please
I'll
make a
make the
motion?
motion to approve.
Someone second?
Second?
All those in favor? Aye. That passes unanimously.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All right, someone second?
Second?
All those in favor? We are out. Thank you.